I stood frozen as my mother's wine glass shattered against my laboratory wall, red liquid streaming down my research posters, like blood. "You selfish witch!" she screamed at my PhD celebration party. "How dare you keep that $1 million grant when your brother needs it more?" The crowd of professors and colleagues gasped. My father grabbed my laptop ready to smash it, but they didn't know I'd been recording everything for my research documentation. They didn't know this moment would change our family forever. The champagne had been flowing freely in the biomedical engineering department's conference room just an hour earlier. Professor Chen had made a touching speech about my 7 years of dedication, the countless nights I'd spent perfecting my prosthetic design, the 3 jobs I'd juggled through undergraduate school to pay for my education without taking a single loan. My colleagues had applauded when she announced the $1 million grant approval, the largest our department had received in 5 years. I remember feeling a warmth in my chest that had nothing to do with the champagne. Finally, after all these years of being invisible to my family, I had achieved something undeniable, something even my parents couldn't ignore or minimize. Or so I thought. My younger brother Marcus had always been their golden child. 5 years my junior, he'd sailed through life on charm and my parents' unlimited financial support, while I worked the night shift at a medical supply warehouse, attended classes during the day, and tutored chemistry students in between. Marcus was living in a luxury apartment near his private university, his biggest concern being which fraternity party to attend. He'd changed majors 6 times in 5 years. Business, then communications, then marketing, then back to business with a minor in entrepreneurship. Each change came with additional semesters, additional tuition, additional excuses. My parents never questioned it. He's finding himself, my mother would say, writing another check. Brilliant minds need time to discover their true calling. Meanwhile, I'd known my calling since I was 12 when I watched my best friend struggle with a prosthetic arm that cost her family $40,000 and still barely functioned. I promised myself that someday I'd create prosthetics that every child could afford that would work as naturally as the limbs they'd lost. But Marcus, his latest calling had been cryptocurrency. He'd convinced my parents to invest their savings into his revolutionary trading algorithm. 3 months later, he'd lost everything. $200,000 vanished into the digital ether. Yet somehow this failure was spun into a learning experience, a necessary step on his journey to greatness. The thing is, I'd made peace with the favoritism years ago. I'd built my own life, my own success, my own sense of worth that didn't depend on their validation. I had my research, my mentor, Dr. Harrison, my lab family, who celebrated every small breakthrough with me. I thought I'd moved past needing their approval. That's why I'd invited them to the celebration, a gesture of goodwill. Look, I wanted to say I made it despite everything. We can move forward now. We can be a real family. The first sign something was wrong came when my colleague, Dr. Jennifer Park, pulled me aside near the dessert table. "Isabel," she said quietly, her eyes darting nervously toward the corner where my brother was holding court with several professors. "I need to tell you something strange. Your brother just introduced himself to Dr. Morrison as the lead researcher on the pediatric prosthetics project." I nearly dropped my plate. "What?" "He's been telling everyone he's the mastermind behind your work. Says you're his assistant helping him with the technical details while he handles the big picture innovation." My stomach turned. I looked across the room where Marcus stood in his tailored suit, gesturing animatedly as he explained his revolutionary approach to neural interface technology. Technical terms rolled off his tongue, words he must have memorized from my published papers. The professors looked impressed, nodding along. I started walking toward him, my hands shaking slightly. Not from anger, but from a deep, bone-tired disappointment. Even here, even now at my moment of triumph, he couldn't let me have it. "Marcus," I called out, my voice steady despite the tremor in my hands. He turned his practiced smile, faltering for just a moment when he saw my expression. "There she is," he announced loudly. "My brilliant sister, the best research assistant anyone could ask for." Research assistant. I kept my voice level professional. We were surrounded by my colleagues, my mentors, the people who actually knew the truth. Marcus, I think there's been a misunderstanding. This is my research, my grant, my PhD celebration. The room grew quiet. Marcus's smile hardened, becoming something sharp and dangerous. Of course, sis. I just meant you've been assisting me in understanding the practical applications. You know how it is, the visionary and the technician working together. I'm the principal investigator, I said clearly. The patents are in my name. The 7 years of research are mine. You've never set foot in this lab before today. His face flushed red. The mask was slipping. Around us, my colleagues shifted uncomfortably, beginning to understand they were witnessing something far more personal than a professional misunderstanding. That's when my parents materialized at his side, my mother's face already set in familiar lines of disapproval. "Isabel," she said, her voice carrying that particular tone of disappointment she'd perfected over the years. "Must you always make everything about you? Your brother is trying to celebrate with you and you're causing a scene." "He's lying about my work," I said simply. "Sharing credit isn't lying." My father interjected his hand on Marcus's shoulder in a show of support that felt like a knife between my ribs. "Family helps family. You wouldn't have gotten this far without us." Without them, I wanted to laugh or cry. Maybe both. They hadn't contributed a penny to my education, hadn't attended a single presentation, hadn't even asked what my research was about until they heard the words, $1 million grant. Dr. Harrison stepped forward, then his presence commanding immediate respect. "I think there's been a misunderstanding," he said diplomatically. "Isabel has been the sole researcher on this project since its inception. I've personally overseen her work for 7 years. There's no collaboration with any external parties." My mother's expression turned icy. "Are you calling my son a liar?" "I'm stating facts, ma'am. This grant was awarded to Isabel based on her solo research and innovations." The tension in the room was suffocating. My celebration had turned into a battlefield, and I was standing in the center, watching my family prepare for war. Marcus's phone buzzed. He glanced at it, and something shifted in his expression. A little smirk played at the corners of his mouth. "Well," he said, putting his phone away, "I suppose we'll see how this all plays out. Congratulations, sister. Enjoy your moment." The way he said it sent chills down my spine. This wasn't over. This was just beginning. As my family left my mother pausing only to whisper "shameful" in my ear, I was left standing among my colleagues trying to salvage what remained of my celebration. People offered awkward congratulations, made excuses to leave early, disappeared into the night. Dr. Harrison stayed helping me clean up. "Isabel," he said, carefully stacking plastic cups, "I need to tell you something. This morning before the party, I received an unusual email. Someone claiming to be your business partner sent formal documentation trying to redirect the grant funds to a different account." My blood ran cold. What? I dismissed it as an obvious scam, but now... He looked troubled. "The signature on the documents looked remarkably like yours. And the technical knowledge in the proposal, the language used, it was sophisticated. Whoever wrote it understood your research intimately." I sank into a chair, the weight of realization crushing me. This wasn't a spur-of-the-moment attempt by Marcus. This was planned, calculated, and I had a terrible feeling it was just the opening move in a game I didn't even know I was playing. "What did you do with the documents?" I asked. "I forwarded them to University Legal and the Grant Committee. I also kept copies." He placed a hand on my shoulder. "Isabel, I think you need to be very careful. This feels like more than simple family drama." As I sat in that empty conference room, surrounded by the debris of what should have been one of the happiest nights of my life, I understood that my brother's transformation from failed crypto trader to sophisticated con artist hadn't been as sudden as it seemed. The question was, how long had he been planning this? And more importantly, how far was he willing to go? The cleanup was almost finished when my phone rang. Security was calling from the main entrance. Dr. Martinez, your parents are here with your brother. They say they forgot something in the conference room. Every instinct screamed at me to refuse them entry, but Dr. Harrison nodded thoughtfully. Let them come, he said quietly, but keep your phone recording. Something tells me we'll want documentation of whatever happens next. I slipped my phone into my lab coat pocket camera, facing outward as my family re-entered the conference room. My mother had changed her entire demeanor. Where earlier she'd been cold and dismissive, now she practically glowed with warmth. Sweetheart, she gushed, pulling me into an unexpected hug. Her perfume was overwhelming, the same lavender scent she'd worn to every important event where she'd pretended to support me. I wanted to apologize for earlier. We were just so surprised. Of course we're proud of you. My father nodded along, though his eyes kept darting to Marcus, who was surveying the room with an calculating expression. Your mother's right, Dad said. Families should stick together, support each other. The words sounded rehearsed. I pulled back from my mother's embrace, studying their faces. Thank you, I said carefully. That means a lot. Marcus stepped forward, extending his hand. True sis, I got carried away earlier. You know how I am at parties. Too much champagne and I start telling stories. I looked at his outstretched hand, remembering all the times he'd offered false peace, only to strike when my guard was down. But with Dr. Harrison watching, I shook it briefly. Actually, Marcus continued, his grip tightening before I could pull away. I have some incredible news. I've been working on starting a medical technology company, revolutionary stuff. And with your technical expertise and my business acumen, we could be unstoppable. Marcus. I extracted my hand from his. I already have a position. The grant funding will establish my lab for the next 5 years. But think bigger. He pulled out his phone, swiping to what looked like an elaborate presentation. Martinez Medical Innovations. You handle the science, I handle the business. We split everything 50-50. I've already got investors interested. What investors? Dr. Harrison interjected, his scholarly demeanor sharpening. Marcus barely glanced at him. Private equity. People who understand the value of family businesses. They're particularly interested in the prosthetics market. My blood chilled. He knew about my research focus, details that had never been publicly released. How do you know about the prosthetics? Oh, Mom's been keeping me updated on your little project, he said casually, still swiping through his presentation. Smart move, focusing on kids. The sympathy factor alone will drive sales through the roof. Little project, sympathy factor, sales. Every word demonstrated how profoundly he misunderstood my life's work. This isn't about sales, I said. It's about giving children their lives back. It's about creating affordable solutions for families who can't spend a year's salary on a prosthetic limb. Right, the altruism angle. Brilliant marketing. Marcus winked at me like we were sharing a secret. But imagine what we could do with proper funding. Instead of one lab, we could have 20. Instead of helping hundreds of kids, we could help millions. My mother clasped her hands together. Isn't it wonderful, my children working together at last? This is what I've always dreamed of. The documentation is already drawn up, my father added, producing a thick folder from his briefcase. When had he even brought a briefcase? All you need to do is sign and Marcus becomes your equal partner. I looked at the folder like it might bite me. You had legal documents prepared before even asking me. We wanted to be ready, Marcus said smoothly. Strike while the iron's hot and all that. The lawyer said we need to file before the grant money is dispersed to avoid complications. What lawyer? Dr. Harrison reached for the folder, but my father pulled it back. Family business, he said firmly. With all due respect, Professor, this doesn't concern you. Actually, it does. Dr. Harrison's voice carried an authority that made my father step back. Any partnership involving grant funds requires university approval. The grant was awarded to Isabel specifically based on her sole authorship of the research. Adding a partner, especially one with no scientific credentials, would require a complete review. Marcus's friendly mask finally slipped completely. So that's how it is. You've poisoned her against her own family." He turned to me, his eyes dark with anger. 7 years I've waited. 7 years of watching you play teacher's pet, thinking you're so special with your little experiments. Waited for what I asked, though I dreaded the answer. For you to finally amount to something worth having. The words exploded out of him. Do you know how humiliating it's been? Having a sister who thinks she's better than everyone who lords her intelligence over the family. I've never lorded anything over anyone, I protested. I've barely seen you in years. Exactly. My mother's warm facade cracked. You abandoned us, moved across the country, buried yourself in this lab, acted like we don't exist unless you need us to witness your achievements. You told me I was wasting my life in school, I reminded her. You said real women focus on finding husbands, not PhDs. And look where it's gotten you, she shot back. 32, unmarried, no children, just a bunch of machines and a piece of paper. A piece of paper that's worth $1 million, Marcus interjected. Money that could save our family if you weren't so selfish. Save the family from what? But even as I asked, pieces were clicking into place. The way they'd all arrived together, the prepared documents, the investor story. You're in financial trouble. My father's shoulders sagged slightly. Your brother's business ventures haven't all been successful. You mean his crypto scam, I said flatly, the one that cost you your retirement savings. It wasn't a scam. Marcus slammed his hand on the table. The market shifted. It happens. But with your grant money, I could recover everything. Make it right. My grant money is for research, for helping children. We're your family. My mother's voice rose to a shriek. We sacrificed everything for you. What sacrifices? I was genuinely bewildered. I paid for everything myself, worked 3 jobs, lived on ramen and hope. What exactly did you sacrifice? We gave you life. She was screaming now. We raised you, and this is how you repay us by hoarding your success, while your brother suffers. Dr. Harrison stepped between us. I think it's time for you to leave. We're not going anywhere, Marcus snarled. Not until she signs these papers. Then I'll call security. Dr. Harrison reached for his phone. What happened next seemed to unfold in slow motion. Marcus lunged for the documents on the table. My father tried to block Dr. Harrison. My mother, in her fury, grabbed the nearest thing, an empty champagne bottle, and hurled it at the wall behind me. The bottle exploded against my research poster, the one showing little Bethany Chen, the first child who'd tested my prototype. Her smiling face was now obscured by glass shards and champagne residue. You want to choose strangers over family. My mother grabbed another bottle. Then you can explain to them why there's no research left. She threw it at my laptop still open on the podium with my presentation slides. The screen cracked, spider webbing across the data I'd spent months compiling. Stop! I rushed forward, but Marcus caught my arm. Sign the papers, he hissed in my ear, or we'll destroy everything you've built. Security burst through the doors, then 2 uniformed guards taking in the scene of destruction. Dr. Harrison was already on the phone with campus police. My family froze, finally seeming to realize they'd crossed a line. This isn't over, my mother said as the guards escorted them out. Her voice had dropped to something low and venomous. You think you've won. You have no idea what we're capable of. No idea what Marcus has already put in motion. As they were led away, Marcus called back over his shoulder. Check your lab tonight, sis. Check it real carefully. Oh, and that recording you think you're making, lawyers love to see how recordings can be edited these days. Deep fakes are amazing technology. The doors closed behind them, leaving Dr. Harrison and me standing among the wreckage of my celebration. Glass crunched under our feet. Champagne dripped from ruined posters. My laptop wheezed and died with a final electronic gasp. Isabel, Dr. Harrison said quietly. What did he mean about checking your lab? I was already running my heels, clicking frantically against the tile floors as I raced through the building. My hands shook as I fumbled with my key card at the lab entrance. The light turned green. the door opened. Everything looked normal. Too normal. Perfectly arranged exactly as I'd left it that afternoon. But something felt wrong. A scent in the air that didn't belong. Cologne. Marcus's cologne. I moved deeper into the lab, examining each workspace, each piece of equipment. Nothing seemed disturbed until I reached my office in the back. There on my desk sat a single champagne glass and a note in Marcus's handwriting. Phase 1 complete. Hope your insurance is up to date. Love, your favorite brother. My hands trembled as I picked up the note. Dr. Harrison appeared behind me, breathing hard from running. We need to call the police, he said immediately. This is a threat. But I was already pulling up my computer, accessing the university's administrative portal. A sick feeling grew in my stomach as I navigated to the insurance section. No, I whispered. There it was, a cancellation notice dated 2 days ago. My lab's comprehensive equipment insurance terminated. The signature on the form was mine, except I'd never signed it. He forged it, Dr. Harrison said, reading over my shoulder. This is fraud. We can prove... A sound from the main lab cut him off, breaking glass, then another crash, and another. We rushed out to find chaos. Someone had rigged delayed release mechanisms throughout the lab. Bottles of chemicals were falling from shelves, microscopes toppling from benches, computers sparking and dying. Years of work being systematically destroyed by some kind of timer system. I grabbed the fire extinguisher, trying to save what I could, but it was like fighting a tide. Every piece of equipment I'd carefully acquired, every tool I'd saved for, was being methodically demolished. The research data, I screamed, remembering the backup drives in the refrigerated storage unit. Dr. Harrison was already there, yanking open the door. The drives were gone. In their place was another note. Did you really think I'd let you keep all the credit? See you at the review board. M. I sank to my knees among the wreckage, finally understanding the full scope of what was happening. This wasn't just about money. This wasn't even just about the grant. This was about destroying me completely, systematically, with a cruelty I hadn't imagined even Marcus capable of. The sirens were getting closer. Campus police would be here soon. They'd document everything, take statements, promise investigations. But I knew with terrifying clarity that this was only the beginning. Whatever Marcus had planned, whatever game he was playing, he'd been preparing for much longer than I'd realized. As I knelt there in the ruins of my life's work, one thought crystallized with perfect clarity. My family wasn't just dysfunctional. They were dangerous. And they'd just declared war. The police had left hours ago their evidence bags filled with pieces of my destroyed dreams. Dr. Harrison had insisted on staying with me while I tried to salvage what I could from the wreckage. By 11:30, he'd finally gone home at my insistence, but not before making me promise to leave soon myself. I couldn't leave. Not yet. Among the debris, I'd found fragments of my original prototype design, the one I'd hand-drawn 5 years ago during a particularly inspiring night. It was water-damaged and torn, but still partially readable. I sat at the one intact bench, carefully trying to piece it together like the world's saddest jigsaw puzzle. The building was eerily quiet. The emergency lights cast long shadows across the broken glass and spilled chemicals. Every small sound made me jump, but I attributed it to nerves and exhaustion. I should have trusted my instincts. At exactly midnight, I heard it. The soft beep of the security door, the electronic lock disengaging. My blood froze. Only a handful of people had the access code to enter after hours. I'd given it to my parents years ago, back when I still harbored hope they might take an interest in my work. Footsteps echoed in the hallway. Multiple sets, heavy and deliberate. I quickly slipped behind an overturned equipment shelf, pulling out my phone. My fingers shook as I activated the recording function and dialed 911, keeping my finger hovering over the call button. The door to my lab opened. My mother entered first, dressed in black like some kind of burglar from a bad movie. Behind her came my father Marcus and 2 men I'd never seen before. Large men with cold eyes and work gloves. Spread out. Marcus commanded his voice, carrying an authority I'd never heard before. Priority items are anything with data storage, any intact prototypes, and the main server in the back office. Destroy everything else. Marcus, the police were already here, my father said nervously. Maybe we should... Should what, Dad? Marcus cut him off. Let her rebuild. Let her present to the grant committee next week with evidence of her groundbreaking work. No. We finish this tonight. They moved through the lab methodically. What the timer devices hadn't destroyed, they did. My mother seemed to take particular pleasure in smashing the few remaining photographs on my desk, images of me with child test subjects who'd tried early prototypes. Look at her, she sneered, grinding her heel into a photo of me with Bethany Chen, playing savior to other people's children while ignoring her own family. She was always like this. My father agreed, sweeping an entire shelf of reference books onto the floor. Too good for us, too special. Remember when she won that science fair in high school? Wouldn't even let us put the trophy in the living room. Said it belonged in her room where she could study it for motivation. Pretentious even at 16, Marcus laughed, but not smart enough to see this coming. One of the large men called out from the storage area, "Hey boss, there's a locked cabinet here. Want me to break it?" "Everything," Marcus confirmed. "Leave nothing she can use." I pressed myself further into the shadows, my phone capturing every word, every crime. The emergency exit was 20 feet away. If I could just... Wait, my mother's voice cut through the destruction. Do you smell that? My heart hammered against my ribs. She was sniffing the air like a bloodhound. Jasmine, she said slowly. Isabel's shampoo. She's been here recently. The cops said she left at 9, one of the men reported. No. My mother's eyes swept the room. She never leaves when there's work to do. She's here somewhere. Find her. They spread out, searching methodically. I held my breath, calculating distances, exits, options. The phone in my hand was my only weapon, the video my only hope of justice. Marcus was getting closer to my hiding spot. Come out, sister dear, he called in a sing-song voice. We just want to talk, have a family discussion about your future. I made my decision. In one movement, I burst from behind the shelf and sprinted for the emergency exit. The alarm would sound, security would come, I just had to make it. One of the large men moved faster than his size suggested. He caught my arm just as I reached the door, spinning me around. My phone flew from my hand, skittering across the floor. Got her, he announced. They surrounded me quickly. My mother picked up my phone, examining it with disgust. Recording us, your own family. She threw it against the wall, but I'd already uploaded everything to the cloud. A small victory. Let me go, I said, surprised by how steady my voice sounded. Security will be here any minute. Marcus laughed. Security? You mean Jerry, who's currently enjoying a very long bathroom break thanks to the coffee one of my associates brought him. We have at least an hour. What do you want? I asked, though I already knew. Simple, my mother said. You're going to sign over the grant. You're going to name Marcus as co-investigator. You're going to publicly acknowledge that the research was a joint effort from the beginning. And if I refuse? The two men stepped closer. Marcus pulled out his phone, showing me a video. It was me, but the words coming out of my mouth weren't mine. I've been falsifying data for years, the fake me said. The prosthetics don't work. I've been scamming the university. Deep fake technology is incredible these days, Marcus said conversationally. My friends here are experts. They've already created dozens of videos. You admitting to fraud, to stealing research, to inappropriate relationships with test subjects' families, all very convincing. No one will believe that, I said, but my voice wavered. Won't they? My mother smiled coldly. A woman under pressure, about to lose her brother's investment, desperate to keep her grant people crack all the time. And with your history of mental health struggles... What mental health struggles? I was genuinely confused. The ones documented in your medical files, my father said quietly. The therapy sessions, the anxiety medication, the breakdown during your 3rd year. I've never had therapy. I've never taken anxiety medication. But even as I said it, a chill ran down my spine. You created false medical records. Created is such a harsh word, Marcus said. Let's say we enhanced reality, just like we're going to enhance your research by adding my name to it. One of the men grabbed my arms, holding me still, while Marcus produced documents from his jacket. Sign, he ordered. No. The man's grip tightened painfully. My mother stepped close, her breath hot on my face. You stupid, stubborn girl, do you think this is a game? Do you know what Marcus owes? Who he owes it to? The Russians are not patient people. My father added, his face gray with fear. If Marcus doesn't pay them back, so you're destroying my life to save his... I struggled against the grip. He created this mess. He's family, my mother screamed. You help family. You sacrifice for family. That's what love means. Love? I laughed bitterly. This isn't love. This is extortion. This is abuse. This is... The slap came so fast I didn't see it. My mother's hand connected with my cheek hard enough to snap my head sideways. Don't you dare lecture me about love. I carried you for 9 months. I gave up my career for you. You were a part-time receptionist, I said, tasting blood. And you quit because you didn't like waking up early. She raised her hand again, but Marcus caught it. Enough. We're not here to debate family history. He held the papers in front of me again. Sign or we release the videos tonight. Your career will be over before sunrise. No university will touch you. No journal will publish you. You'll be radioactive. I looked at each of their faces. My mother's twisted with rage, my father's weak with complicity, Marcus's cold with desperation. These people who shared my blood but had never shared my dreams, my values, my heart. I need my hands free to sign, I said quietly. Marcus nodded to the man holding me. As soon as my arms were released, I grabbed the nearest thing, a shard of broken glass from a destroyed monitor. Stay back. I held it in front of me, backing toward the storage closet. Don't be dramatic, Marcus sighed. You're not going to hurt anyone. He was right. I wasn't. But I could buy time. I slashed at the papers in his hand, shredding them. You'll have to forge my signature like you did with the insurance. Grab her, Marcus shouted. I ducked into the storage closet, slamming the door and engaging the lock. It was reinforced steel designed to protect sensitive materials. It would hold for a while. Isabel. My mother pounded on the door. Open this door right now. I pulled out the emergency phone mounted on the wall, dialing campus security. This is Dr. Isabel Martinez in the Biomedical Engineering Building. There are intruders in my lab. Send help immediately. Silence fell outside the door. Then I heard Marcus's voice, calm and measured. Change of plans. Torch it all. Make it look like an electrical fire. She can't prove anything if there's nothing left. What about her? One of the men asked. Tragic accident, Marcus replied. Brilliant scientist dies trying to save her research. Very sad. Very convenient. The smell hit me moments later. Smoke. They were actually going to burn the building down with me inside. I looked around the closet frantically. There was a ventilation grate near the ceiling. Small, but maybe. As I climbed the shelving unit, I heard sirens in the distance. Campus security was coming, but would they be fast enough? The smoke was getting thicker. I could hear flames crackling outside the door. My fingers worked at the grate screws, made difficult by the blood from where I'd cut myself on the glass. We need to go. My father's voice was panicked. Now. Not without confirmation, Marcus insisted. Check the other exits. Make sure she can't. The door burst open. Not the closet door, the main lab entrance. Campus security, everyone freeze. Chaos erupted. Shouts, running, feet crashing equipment. I kept working on the grate, coughing as smoke filled the closet. The last screw came free just as the closet door began to buckle from the heat. I pulled myself up into the ventilation shaft just as the door collapsed. Flames licked at my feet as I crawled forward, following the air current toward what I hoped was safety. Behind me, I could hear more sirens, more shouts. The fire alarm was screaming. The sprinkler system finally activated, dousing everything in water. I tumbled out of a vent into a hallway 2 doors down from my lab, gasping and coughing. Security officers were everywhere. I saw my parents being handcuffed, my mother still screaming about ungrateful daughters. The 2 large men were face down on the floor. But Marcus wasn't there. "Where is he?" I grabbed the nearest officer. "My brother, where is he?" "Ma'am, you need medical attention." "He's behind all this, I broke into a coughing fit. A paramedic appeared guiding me outside. As I was loaded into an ambulance, I saw him, Marcus standing in the crowd of onlookers that had gathered, just another concerned citizen, watching the drama unfold. Our eyes met. He smiled and mouthed a single word, "Tomorrow." Then he melted back into the crowd and disappeared. As the ambulance doors closed, I realized this night of horror had only been the opening salvo. Marcus was still free, still plotting, and now he was desperate. Whatever came tomorrow would be worse. But he'd made one crucial mistake. He'd let me live. And I was done being the victim in this family tragedy. It was time to fight back. The hospital released me at dawn with bruised ribs, minor burns, and lungs that felt like I'd swallowed sandpaper. Dr. Harrison was waiting in the lobby looking like he'd aged 10 years overnight. "They arrested your parents," he said quietly as he helped me to his car. "But Marcus vanished." I finished, my voice still raspy. "I know, I saw him in the crowd." "Isabel, there's more. The fire destroyed everything. The entire lab, all the equipment, even the backup servers in the basement. The fire chief says it's one of the worst cases of arson he's seen." I nodded numbly. 7 years of work gone. But worse than the physical destruction was knowing my own family had tried to kill me. The word felt foreign in my mind. Murder. They'd actually attempted murder. Dr. Harrison drove me to his house, insisting I couldn't go back to my apartment. If Marcus is still out there, he was right. I accepted his guest room, gratefully collapsing into bed as exhaustion overtook me. But sleep brought no peace, only nightmares of smoke and my mother's screaming face. I woke to my phone ringing, unknown number. Against my better judgment, I answered. "Dr. Martinez, this is David Chen from University Insurance Services. I need to speak with you urgently about your lab coverage." My stomach dropped. The policy was canceled. I know, it was fraud. "That's just it," he interrupted. "We've been investigating since the fire. The cancellation was definitely fraudulent, but there's something else, something worse." We agreed to meet at a coffee shop on campus. I arrived to find Mr. Chen already there, a thin man with worried eyes and a briefcase full of documents. "Coffee," he offered. "Answers," I countered, too exhausted for pleasantries. He pulled out a file. "The cancellation was submitted 2 days ago using your forged signature. We can prove that. But during our investigation, we discovered something troubling. A new policy was taken out on your lab equipment the same day, under a different name." He slid a paper across to me. The policyholder's name made my blood run cold. Marcus Martinez. He insured my equipment under his name. "For twice its actual value," Mr. Chen confirmed. With himself as the sole beneficiary, the policy specifically covered fire damage. The full implication hit me like a physical blow. He planned to burn it from the beginning. This was never about making me share the grant. It was about collecting insurance money. $2.3 million to be exact, Mr. Chen said grimly. The claim was filed this morning, less than 6 hours after the fire. But that's fraud. Proving it is the challenge. The policy appears legitimate. He provided documentation showing he was an investor in your research receipts for equipment purchases, all forged, we assume, but sophisticated forgeries. I thought I'd reached the bottom of Marcus's depravity, but he kept finding new depths. What about the criminal investigation my parents confessed to being there? Mr. Chen shifted uncomfortably. Your parents' lawyer is claiming they went to the lab to stage an intervention for your mental health issues. They say the fire was accidental, started by your unstable behavior. What? He pulled out another document. Medical records were submitted to the police this morning. Psychological evaluations, prescriptions, even commitment papers from 3 years ago. I scanned the papers with growing horror. They were incredibly detailed. Therapy session notes describing my delusions of grandeur and pathological need for attention. Prescriptions for antipsychotics I'd never taken. An involuntary commitment order I'd never seen. These are all fake, I said weakly. The problem is they're in the system, official databases. Either someone hacked multiple medical institutions or Marcus has been planning this for years, I finished, creating a false trail to discredit me if needed. Mr. Chen leaned forward. Dr. Martinez, I believe you. The university believes you. But in court with these documents, with your parents' testimony, with the video evidence that's sure to surface. What video evidence? He looked pained. Security footage from last night is missing, but there's new footage from a different angle showing you acting erratically in the lab, apparently starting the fire yourself. Deep fakes, I said immediately. Marcus bragged about having experts who could create them. Proving that will be difficult and expensive. In the meantime, he'll be collecting the insurance payout and disappearing. I buried my face in my hands. Every move I made, Marcus was 3 steps ahead. But then something occurred to me. Wait, you said the policy covered fire damage specifically. Yes, why? What about the timer devices? The ones that destroyed equipment before the fire? Is there evidence of those? Mr. Chen's eyes lit up. The fire chief mentioned finding unusual debris, mechanisms that didn't match any standard lab equipment. Because they were rigged to destroy everything in sequence. If we can prove the damage started before the fire, prove it was systematic, the policy wouldn't cover pre-fire damage, Mr. Chen finished. And filing a claim for damage he knew was pre-existing would be fraud, we said together. It wasn't much, but it was something. A thread to pull that might unravel Marcus's scheme. Mr. Chen promised to coordinate with the fire investigators immediately. As I left the coffee shop, my phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. Nice try, sis, but I've been playing this game longer than you think. Check your email. With trembling fingers, I opened my email. The subject line made my heart stop. Confidential patient records. Isabel Martinez. The attachments were dozens of documents, not just the fake medical records, but photos. Pictures of me supposedly in psychiatric facilities with other patients looking disheveled and unstable. Photos dated years ago at times when I knew I'd been in my lab. But the worst was the video file. It showed me, or someone who looked exactly like me, in what appeared to be a therapy session, talking about my resentment toward my family, my violent fantasies about Marcus, my plans to frame them for trying to steal my work. I know they don't appreciate me, the fake me said on screen, but I'll make them pay. I'll destroy myself if I have to just to see them suffer. I sank onto a nearby bench, the phone shaking in my hands. This wasn't just about money anymore. Marcus was systematically destroying my credibility, my reputation, my entire identity. By the time he was done, I wouldn't just lose my grant. I'd be unemployable, possibly institutionalized. Another text arrived. Surrender the grant and disappear, or this goes viral. You have 24 hours. I looked around the campus I'd called home for 7 years. Students walked by chatting about classes living normal lives. None of them knew that a war was being waged in their midst, a battle for truth against an enemy who'd weaponized technology and family bonds into instruments of destruction. But as I sat there, something hardened inside me. Marcus thought he'd won. He thought I'd crumble, give in, disappear like he demanded. He was wrong. I might be outgunned and outmaneuvered, but I had something he didn't. I had the truth. And I had 7 years of scientific training in documenting, analyzing, and proving hypotheses. If Marcus wanted to play this game, I'd play. But I'd play by my rules. And the first rule was simple in science as in life. The truth always finds a way. I stood up, squaring my shoulders. Time to stop being the victim. Time to start being the researcher. And my first research question was simple. Who was Marcus Martinez really, and what skeletons were hiding in his perfectly tailored closet? The private investigator's office was tucked between a dry cleaner and a tax preparation service so unremarkable that I walked past it twice before finding the right door. Samantha Webb had come highly recommended by the university's legal team, though they'd been careful to note they couldn't officially endorse hiring her. Dr. Martinez. She greeted me, her handshake firm and brief. She was younger than I'd expected, maybe 40, with sharp eyes that seemed to catalog everything about me in seconds. Please have a seat. Tell me why you need my services. For the next hour, I laid out everything. The party, the lab destruction, the insurance fraud, the deep fakes. She took notes without interrupting, occasionally asking for clarification on dates or names. When I finished, she leaned back in her chair, tapping her pen against her notepad. Your brother's operation is sophisticated, she said finally. This level of planning, the technical expertise required the forged documents in official systems. This isn't amateur hour. He has help. Professional help. Can you find out who? I can find out everything, she said with quiet confidence. But I need to warn you, when families turn like this, when money's involved, what I uncover might be worse than what you already know. I need the truth, I said firmly, whatever it is. She nodded. I'll start with financial records. Follow the money, find the motive. I'll need any information you have about your family's finances, past and present. I gave her what I knew, which wasn't much. My parents had always been secretive about money, especially around me. I'd assumed it was because they didn't want me asking for help with school expenses. 3 days later, Samantha called. We need to meet. Not at my office. Too many eyes. There's a park on Riverside Drive, the bench near the children's playground. 1 hour. I found her feeding pigeons, looking like any other person enjoying a sunny afternoon. She didn't acknowledge me until I sat down, then slid a thick envelope onto the bench between us. Your parents' house has been refinanced 3 times in the last 5 years. She began without preamble, each time to cover Marcus's debts. But that's just the beginning. I opened the envelope, scanning documents that made my head spin. Loan applications, bank statements, legal notices. Marcus has been sued 6 times for fraud, Samantha continued. Different states, different schemes, but always the same pattern. He finds investors, promises revolutionary returns, then vanishes when the money disappears. Each time your parents bail him out, seal the records, move him to a new city to start fresh. 6 times. I couldn't process it. How did I not know? Because you were deliberately kept in the dark. But here's where it gets interesting. She pointed to a particular document. 3 years ago, Marcus tried to run his biggest con yet. The target was a tech entrepreneur named James Morrison. The scheme failed, but Morrison didn't just sue. He hired his own investigators. They found something your family's been hiding for decades. She handed me another set of papers. As I read, my world tilted off its axis. This can't be right, I whispered. Your maternal grandmother, Ellen Foster, died 10 years ago. Official cause was a stroke. But Morrison's investigators found inconsistencies. Your grandmother had changed her will just 2 weeks before her death, leaving everything to Marcus. The previous will had divided her considerable estate equally among all grandchildren. I remember that, I said slowly. Mom said Grandma wanted to help Marcus get established in business. I was hurt, but... The signature on the new will was forged, Samantha said flatly. A handwriting expert confirmed it. But by the time anyone might have questioned it, your grandmother was dead and cremated. No autopsy. Your mother handled all arrangements. The implication hung between us like a physical presence. You're suggesting my mother and Marcus... I'm presenting facts. Your grandmother was in excellent health, according to her doctor. She'd just returned from a cruise. Then suddenly, she has dinner with your family, suffers a massive stroke, and dies within hours. The will is executed immediately. Marcus gets $2.8 million, and within 6 months it's all gone on another failed scheme. I felt sick. Even if that's true, it was 10 years ago. How does it connect to now? Samantha pulled out her phone, showing me a recording. Your brother's ex-fiancée, Sarah Chen, contacted me after I started making inquiries. She has quite a story to tell. Sarah's voice filled the space between us. Marcus kept trophies, documents, recordings, photos. He said they were his insurance policy proof that his family was in everything with him. He showed me once when he was drunk. There were medical files, forged wills, even recordings of his mother coaching him on what to say to investors. He said if he ever went down, they'd all go with him. Where are these documents now? I heard Samantha ask on the recording. He keeps them in a storage unit in Queens, Unit 473 at Secure Store on Northern Boulevard. But there's more. He recorded conversations with his mother about you. They've been planning to take your research for years, ever since you published your first paper. They knew you'd eventually create something valuable. I paused the recording, my hands shaking. They killed her. They killed my grandmother for money. That's for law enforcement to determine, Samantha said carefully. But there's more you need to hear. The recording continued. Sarah's voice grew more emotional. The worst part was listening to them laugh about it. How they'd convinced Ellen to trust them. How easy it was to put the medication in her wine. How stupid the authorities were for not questioning a stroke in a 70-year-old woman. Medication, Samantha's voice prompted. Marcus bragged about it. Said his mother had gotten it from a friend who worked in a hospital. Something that mimicked stroke symptoms perfectly. Untraceable after 24 hours. I stopped the recording, unable to listen anymore. The grandmother who'd taught me to love science, who'd encouraged my dreams when no one else would have been murdered by her own daughter and grandson. This recording isn't enough for a murder charge after all these years, Samantha said gently, but it establishes pattern and intent. Combined with what they've done to you, the FBI, I said suddenly. Research grant fraud is federal. If we can prove the pattern of crimes across state lines, now you're thinking like an investigator, Samantha approved. But first we need those documents from the storage unit, and we need them before Marcus realizes we know about them. How do we get them? We can't break in. Samantha smiled grimly. We don't have to. Sarah still has a key. She's willing to cooperate fully in exchange for immunity. Apparently, your brother involved her in some of his schemes, and she's been living in fear of prosecution ever since they broke up. When I asked, tonight, Sarah's flying in from Chicago. We meet her at the storage facility at midnight. But Dr. Martinez, I need you to understand something. Once we have those documents, once this becomes official, there's no going back. Your entire family will likely face charges. The media will be brutal. Your private life will become public fodder. I thought about my grandmother, about the trust in her eyes when she'd helped me buy my first microscope. About how my mother had cried at her funeral playing the grieving daughter while counting her son's inheritance. I understand, I said. When do we meet? I'll text you the details. And Dr. Martinez, don't go anywhere alone. Don't trust anyone. If Marcus gets wind of this... She didn't need to finish. I'd already survived one murder attempt. I knew there'd be another. As I walked back to Dr. Harrison's house, where I was still staying, my phone rang. My mother's lawyer. Dr. Martinez, I'm calling to inform you that your mother is willing to make a deal. She'll admit the lab incident was all Marcus's idea, testify against him in exchange for certain considerations. What considerations? Drop all civil charges against her, don't contest her version of events regarding your mental health, and sign over half the grant money to cover what she calls family obligations. I almost laughed. Even facing federal charges, even caught red-handed trying to kill me, she was still scheming for money. Tell my mother, I said slowly, that I'll see her in court, and if she's smart, she'll start telling the truth about Grandma Ellen. It might be the only thing that saves her from spending the rest of her life in prison. I hung up before he could respond. Tonight, I'd have the evidence to destroy them all. The question was, would I survive long enough to use it? My phone buzzed with a text from Marcus. Heard you hired a PI, cute, but you should ask Samantha Webb about her husband's accident. Amazing how motivated people become when their children's safety is at stake. I stopped walking, ice in my veins. Was he threatening Samantha's family? Had he gotten to her? Was I walking into another trap? But then another text arrived, this time from Samantha. Got his message too. Nice try, but my ex-husband's motorcycle accident was his own drunk fault, and I don't have kids. He's fishing, getting desperate. Stay the course. I smiled grimly. Marcus had finally made a mistake. He'd revealed that he was monitoring my moves, that he knew about Samantha, which meant he was scared. And scared people make mistakes. Tonight at the storage unit, I'd find out just how many mistakes my brother had really made, and then I'd use every single one to bury him. The storage unit in Queens smelled like dust and secrets. Sarah Chen was already there when Samantha and I arrived, a small woman who seemed to shrink even further when she saw me. "I'm sorry," were her first words. I should have come forward sooner. But Marcus, he knows things about me, things that could destroy my life. "We're not here to judge," Samantha said briskly, though her hand remained near the concealed weapon I now knew she carried. "Just show us the unit." Sarah led us through rows of identical metal doors until we reached Unit 473. Her hands trembled as she worked the lock. "He doesn't know I kept a key. We were supposed to destroy everything after we broke up, but I thought... insurance, you know." The door rolled up to reveal a space packed with boxes, filing cabinets, and plastic containers. It looked like an archive of crimes meticulously organized. "Where do we start?" I asked. Sarah went straight to a filing cabinet in the back. "The family stuff is here." He called it his leverage files. She pulled out a drawer packed with folders. "This one is about your grandmother. This one is about you." My folder was disturbingly thick. I opened it to find years of surveillance, photos of me at conferences, copies of my research papers, annotated in Marcus's handwriting, even my undergraduate transcripts. "He's been planning this since you started grad school," Sarah explained. "When you chose biomedical engineering, he researched which fields get the biggest grants. When you focused on prosthetics, he started making contacts in medical device companies. The long game," Samantha murmured, photographing everything. "This level of premeditation will be devastating in court." I reached for my grandmother's folder, then stopped. "I can't. You look." Samantha opened it, her expression darkening as she read. Medical records original and forged versions side by side. A receipt for potassium chloride. Dear God, there's a practice version of the forged will with notes on improving the signature. "The recording equipment is over here," Sarah called from another corner. "He recorded everything, every meeting, every phone call." We found hundreds of hours of audio. Samantha spot-checked several files, her face growing grimmer with each one. My mother's voice filled the storage unit, discussing ways to discredit me, to steal my work, to ensure I'd never be believed if I fought back. "There's one from last month you need to hear," Sarah said quietly. She played a file dated 3 weeks before my grant announcement. Marcus's voice. "The timing has to be perfect. She wins the grant, we let her have her moment of glory, then we strike. First the lab, then her reputation, then her sanity. By the time we're done, she'll be begging us to take the money just to make it stop." My mother's response chilled me. "And if she doesn't break, then we break her permanently, like we did with Mother." Isabel's always been too much like her, too independent. Sometimes you have to put family members out of their misery. I had to sit down on a box, the weight of their casual discussion of murder crushing my chest. This wasn't heat of the moment violence. This was calculated, cold-planned assassination of character and possibly body. "We need to call the FBI now," Samantha said. "This is beyond local law enforcement." But before she could dial, we heard footsteps outside, multiple sets moving fast. "He knows we're here," Sarah whispered, terrified. "He must have tracked my phone or—" "Back exit," Samantha commanded, drawing her weapon. "Move." We grabbed what evidence we could carry and ran. Behind us, I heard Marcus's voice. Sister dear just wanted to collect some memories, family photos and such. The back exit was blocked. 2 large men stood there, the same ones from the lab attack. Other way, Samantha hissed, pulling us down another row. We zigzagged through the facility, the sound of pursuit growing closer. My arms ached from carrying boxes of evidence, but I couldn't let go. This was proof of years of crimes, the key to justice for my grandmother. There, I spotted an emergency exit. We burst through alarms, blaring. Samantha's car was parked strategically near the exit. We threw ourselves and the evidence inside just as Marcus emerged from the facility. "Drive!" Sarah screamed. Samantha peeled out tires, squealing. In the rearview mirror, I saw Marcus standing in the parking lot, phone to his ear. He wasn't chasing us. That worried me more than if he had. "Safe house," Samantha said tersely. "I've got a secure location. We'll contact the FBI from there." 20 minutes later, we were in a nondescript apartment in Astoria. Samantha immediately began uploading the evidence to multiple secure servers while simultaneously contacting her FBI liaison. "Agent Rivera will meet us in an hour," she reported. "He's bringing a full team. This is now officially a federal investigation into interstate fraud conspiracy and potential murder." My phone had been buzzing nonstop. Dr. Harrison concerned. The university asking about my well-being, and dozens of unknown numbers I didn't dare answer. Then a text from my father. "Your mother's been released on bail. She's very upset. Please come home so we can sort this out as a family." I showed it to Samantha. "Trap." "Definitely, but interesting that she's out. Someone posted significant bail." Sarah, who'd been quiet since our escape, suddenly spoke up. "There's something else you need to know. Marcus has a partner, someone with real money and connections. I never met them, but Marcus called them the banker. They funded his bigger schemes." "Any details?" Samantha pressed. "Just that they had a special interest in medical technology. Marcus promised them access to cutting-edge research in exchange for funding." The pieces clicked into place. My research. He promised them my research. "Which means," Samantha said slowly, "this is bigger than family drama. Someone with deep pockets wants your prosthetics technology. Marcus was just the means to get it." Agent Rivera arrived exactly on time, a tall man with kind eyes that missed nothing. He reviewed our evidence with increasing excitement. "This is substantial," he said finally. "With Sarah's cooperation in these documents, we can build a RICO case, racketeering conspiracy fraud spanning years. But Dr. Martinez, I need to be clear. Your brother is now cornered and desperate. Our behavioral analysis unit suggests he'll escalate. You need protective custody." "I can't hide forever," I protested. "I have to present to the grant committee next week. If I don't show up, they'll revoke the funding." "Then we'll provide security," Rivera decided. "But first we need to move on these storage units before Marcus can destroy the evidence. Ms. Chen, are you willing to wear a wire? If we can get Marcus talking about the banker—" Sarah nodded bravely. "I'll do it, but I want immunity. Full immunity for anything he might reveal I was involved in." "I'll make the call," Rivera said. As he stepped away to phone his superiors, Samantha's computer pinged. New email. She opened it and her face went white. "What I asked." She turned the screen toward me. It was a video file. The thumbnail showed the inside of Dr. Harrison's house. My mentor tied to a chair, Marcus standing beside him. "No," I breathed. The message was simple. 1 hour. Come alone. You know where. Bring all evidence or the professor takes the blame for everything. I have video of him confessing to masterminding the grant fraud. Your choice, sis." Agent Rivera saw our faces and hurried back. "What's happened?" I showed him the email. He immediately began making calls, mobilizing units, but I already knew what I had to do. "He'll kill Dr. Harrison if he sees FBI agents," I said. "This is between Marcus and me now." "Absolutely not," Rivera said firmly. "This is exactly what he wants, you walking into a trap." But I was already thinking like a researcher again. Hypothesis. Marcus was desperate enough to kidnap an innocent man. variable. He needed me to come alone, experiment, give him what he wanted, but on my terms. I have an idea, I said slowly, but we'll need Sarah to be very brave and we'll need to work fast. As I outlined my plan, I saw respect dawn in Rivera's eyes. Maybe I wasn't just a victim anymore. Maybe I was finally becoming the fighter my brother had always feared I could be. The war between us was entering its final phase. Only one of us would survive it intact, and for Dr. Harrison, for my grandmother, for justice itself, I was determined it would be me. The plan we'd hatched in that Astoria safe house was risky, but it had worked. Sarah had worn a wire and met Marcus at his specified location, an abandoned warehouse in Brooklyn. While he was distracted with her, the FBI had extracted Dr. Harrison safely. Marcus's rage when he realized he'd been outmaneuvered was captured in vivid audio, along with his threats against me, confessions about the insurance fraud, and crucially several references to the banker who was pressuring him for results. But Marcus had escaped during the raid, vanishing into the night like the ghost he'd become. And now, 3 days later, I sat outside the University Grant Committee hearing room, knowing he was still out there, still plotting. Dr. Martinez. The committee secretary opened the door. "They're ready for you." The room was packed. The 5 committee members sat at their curved table, but the audience section was unusually full. Word had gotten out about the drama surrounding my grant, and academic vultures had gathered to witness what they assumed would be my downfall. I took my seat at the candidate table, placing my salvaged research notes in front of me. The committee chair, Dr. Elizabeth Warren, regarded me with sympathy tinged with professional distance. "Dr. Martinez, given the extraordinary circumstances surrounding your grant, we've convened this emergency review. You'll have the opportunity to present your case, followed by other interested parties." My stomach dropped as the door opened again. My mother entered, dressed in a conservative suit I'd never seen her wear, followed by a man in an expensive gray suit, who could only be her lawyer. She'd lost weight in jail, and her usually perfect hair showed gray roots. For a moment, she looked vulnerable, almost fragile. Then our eyes met, and the hatred there was pure and undiluted. "Patricia Martinez and counsel may be seated," Dr. Warren said formally. "Mrs. Martinez has filed a formal complaint alleging that the grant was obtained through fraudulent means and that she, as Dr. Martinez's legal guardian, should have control over the funds." Legal guardian. I stood so quickly my chair scraped against the floor. "I'm 32 years old." "Due to your documented mental health issues," my mother's lawyer said smoothly, "we have extensive medical documentation showing Dr. Martinez has suffered from severe psychological problems requiring intervention." "Those documents are forgeries," I said, fighting to keep my voice steady. "The FBI is already investigating." "The FBI investigation is into your brother, not your mental state," the lawyer interrupted. "These medical records predate any alleged criminal activity." Dr. Warren held up a hand for silence. "We'll proceed in an orderly fashion. Dr. Martinez, please present your research and address the committee's concerns." I stood calling on every ounce of professionalism I'd developed over 7 years. "Distinguished committee members, my research into affordable pediatric prosthetics represents a breakthrough in biomedical engineering. Despite the recent destruction of my physical lab, the theoretical work remains sound and reproducible." I walked them through my innovations, the successful early trials with young patients, the potential for mass production at a fraction of current costs. Several committee members nodded along, familiar with my work from previous presentations. "The technology is revolutionary," Dr. Warren acknowledged. "But we must address the elephant in the room. Can you continue this work given your current situation?" Before I could answer, Dr. Harrison entered the room. My heart leaped seeing him safe, though he moved stiffly from his ordeal. "May I address the committee?" he asked. "As Dr. Martinez's advisor and direct supervisor for 7 years." "Proceed," Dr. Warren said. Dr. Harrison took a position where he could see both the committee and my mother. In my 40-year career, I have never encountered a more dedicated, stable, or brilliant researcher than Isabel Martinez. I've watched her work 18-hour days mentor struggling students and persist through setbacks that would break lesser scientists. The suggestion that she suffers from mental illness is not just false, it's obscene. "You're not a medical professional," my mother's lawyer countered. "We have reports from licensed psychiatrists." Psychiatrists who have never met my client. A new voice interrupted. Everyone turned as Samantha Webb entered, followed by Agent Rivera and another woman in FBI credentials. "Agent Rivera, FBI," he announced. "This hearing is now part of an active federal investigation. The medical documents in question have been confirmed as forgeries created as part of an extensive fraud scheme." He handed Dr. Warren a folder. "Preliminary findings show that Marcus Martinez, in conspiracy with Patricia Martinez and others, has been systematically creating false documentation for years, intending to discredit Dr. Isabel Martinez and steal her intellectual property." My mother stood up, her composure cracking. "This is ridiculous. I'm her mother. I only want what's best for her." "Is that why you tried to burn down her lab with her inside?" Agent Rivera asked mildly. "We have video evidence, Mrs. Martinez. Real video, not the deep fakes your son specializes in." "I want to make a deal," my mother suddenly shouted. "I'll tell you everything. It was all Marcus. He manipulated me. He said we'd just scare her a little, make her share. I never meant for anyone to get hurt." Her lawyer tried to quiet her, but she shoved him away. The facade was crumbling, revealing the desperate woman beneath. "He killed Mother," she screamed, pointing at empty air as if Marcus were there. "I knew it, but I couldn't stop him. He said he'd frame me if I didn't help. He has recordings, documents. He's been planning this since Isabel started showing promise. He couldn't stand that she was smarter, more successful. He said we deserved her success because we're family." The hearing room erupted in chaos. Dr. Warren banged her gavel repeatedly. "Order Agent Rivera, is this woman in custody?" "She's out on bail with conditions," Rivera replied, "though this outburst may change that." My mother turned to me, then mascara streaming down her face. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "I'm so sorry, Isabel. I chose him over you every time, and now I've lost everything. My mother, my daughter, my soul. I'm sorry." For the first time in years, I believed her, but it was far too late for apologies. Dr. Warren restored order with visible effort. Given these extraordinary revelations, I moved to table the review pending the outcome of the federal investigation. However, I also moved to release emergency funding to Dr. Martinez to rebuild her lab and continue her work, all in favor. 4 hands raised immediately. The 5th Dr. Morrison hesitated. "While I sympathize with Dr. Martinez's plight, we must consider the reputation of the university. This scandal, Dr. Harrison interrupted, his normally mild voice sharp with anger, "is about criminals trying to destroy a brilliant scientist. If we punish the victim, we become complicit in the crime." Dr. Morrison's hand slowly rose, unanimous. "Emergency funding approved," Dr. Warren announced. "Dr. Martinez, the committee expresses its full confidence in your work and its deepest regrets for your ordeal. Please let us know what support you need." I stood on shaking legs. "Thank you. I won't let you down." As the hearing concluded, my mother was led away by FBI agents, her broken apologies echoing in the hallway. Her lawyer packed up silently, probably calculating his fees for what would be a very long case. Dr. Harrison enveloped me in a fatherly hug. "You did it," he murmured. "You stood up to them all." "Marcus is still out there," I reminded him. Agent Rivera approached. "Not for long. Your mother's confession gave us new leads. We'll find him." But I wasn't so sure. Marcus had proven himself a master of reinvention of escape, and now, cornered and desperate, he was more dangerous than ever. As if summoned by my thoughts, my phone buzzed. Unknown number, but I knew who it was. "Congratulations, sis. You've destroyed our mother. Are you proud? But this isn't over. The banker wants what I promised, and I always deliver. See you soon." I showed the message to Rivera, who immediately began tracing procedures. But Marcus would be long gone from wherever he'd sent it. The war had taken a terrible toll. My mother broken and facing prison. My father nowhere to be found. My life's work in ashes. But I was still standing, still fighting. And I would rebuild, stronger, better, ready for whatever Marcus threw at me next. Because this wasn't just about me anymore. It was about every child waiting for a prosthetic they could afford, every family destroyed by a predator like Marcus, every dreamer who'd been told their work belonged to someone else simply because of blood ties. I would win this war, for all of them. The FBI raid on Marcus's apartment happened at dawn, 2 weeks after the hearing. I wasn't there, of course, but Agent Rivera called me immediately after. "You need to see this," he said, his usual professional calm cracked. "Can you come to the field office?" I found Rivera in a conference room that looked like a financial crimes unit had exploded. Boxes of documents covered every Surface laptops, hummed on tables, and a massive whiteboard showed a spider web of connections that made my head spin. "Your brother Rivera," began without preamble, "is not just a con artist. He's been running a sophisticated international fraud ring targeting research grants and academic institutions." He handed me a file. Inside were photographs of Marcus with different appearances, bearded, clean-shaven hair, dyed wearing glasses, different names on different IDs. Dr. Martin Collins, Professor Michael Chen, Research Director Mark Santos. "We found 12 false identities," Rivera continued, "each one associated with grant applications at major universities. He's been stealing research from graduate students across the country, repackaging it, and selling it to private investors. The scope—" I couldn't finish. This was so much bigger than our family drama. That's not the worst part. Rivera pulled up financial records on his laptop. We tracked his money through shell companies in the Cayman, Cyprus, Switzerland. Dead ends everywhere. Until one of our forensic accountants noticed something. He showed me a transaction history. Small amounts, seemingly random, but all traced back to a single source. "Your brother has been using an AI-driven system to micro-invest his stolen funds. Thousands of tiny transactions across global markets, each too small to trigger reporting requirements. Over 3 years, he's accumulated—" The number on the screen didn't make sense. I counted the zeros twice. $3 million, I whispered. "Hidden in cryptocurrency and offshore accounts. While he was claiming poverty, manipulating your parents into bankruptcy, he's been building a fortune on the suffering of others." I thought of my parents destroying their lives to save their golden child, who was secretly wealthy beyond their dreams. The cruelty of it was breathtaking. But here's what really interests us. Rivera pulled up another document. 6 months ago, Marcus started moving large sums, liquidating positions, consolidating funds. He was preparing for something big. We think your grant was going to be his final score before disappearing permanently. "Where is he now?" I asked. "Still in the wind, but we have a lead. One of his associates arrested in Miami is willing to talk in exchange for immunity. He claims to know the identity of the banker." The door opened and a younger agent entered with a tablet. "Sir, urgent update. We've decrypted more files from the apartment." Rivera scanned the tablet, his face darkening. "Dr. Martinez, did your grandmother have any other valuable assets besides money, art, perhaps, jewelry?" My mind raced. She had a collection. Medical patents from her father, my great-grandfather. He was a pioneering surgeon in the 1940s. The patents were expired worthless, but she kept them for sentimental value. "Not worthless," Rivera said grimly. "Your brother found a loophole. Some of those patents contained base compounds that were never fully explored. With modern technology, they could be developed into new drugs. Pharmaceutical companies would pay millions for the historical documentation and research rights. But the patents went to the university museum after she died. She donated them in her will." I trailed off, understanding. The forged will. Exactly. The real will left them to the museum. The fake one gave them to Marcus. He's been negotiating with pharma companies for years, using your grandmother's legacy as collateral for his schemes. Each revelation was another knife twist. Marcus hadn't just stolen money, he'd stolen our history. Our heritage perverted our grandmother's memory for profit. I need air, I said weakly. Rivera nodded sympathetically. Take your time. But there's one more thing. The associate in Miami. He says the banker has a particular interest in your prosthetics research because they have a child who needs one. This isn't just business for them, it's personal. I stepped onto the field office balcony, gulping New York's polluted air like it was mountain fresh. Below, the city churned on, oblivious to the war being fought in its shadows. My phone buzzed, Dr. Harrison checking in. Then another text, this one from Sarah Chen. Saw the news about the raids. Stay strong. Marcus tried to contact me. I didn't respond, but wanted you to know. A third buzz, unknown number. 3 million was just the beginning, sis. Wait until they find the real accounts. But they won't. Not before I finish what I started. The banker is getting impatient. Your prototype data better be as good as I promised, or we'll both have problems. I screenshot the message and returned to Rivera. He read it with professional interest. He's panicking, Rivera analyzed, making threats, reaching out to former associates, classic signs of a net closing. But this reference to real accounts is concerning. Could he have more money hidden? With your brother, I'm learning to expect the impossible. Rivera called in his team. Full forensic audit. Every transaction, every crypto wallet, every possible hiding place. And get me the Miami associate on video. I want to know everything about this banker. The next hours blurred together. The FBI's Financial Crimes Unit worked with an intensity I recognized from my own lab research. Data streams, pattern analysis, the dogged pursuit of truth through numbers. Then breakthrough. A young analyst named Chen found it. Sir, I've identified a pattern in the microtransactions. They're not random. They're following a mathematical sequence. It's brilliant, actually. Each transaction is part of a larger algorithm that... English Chen Rivera interrupted. He's hidden money inside money. The microtransactions aren't just hiding funds, they're generating them. Like a financial virus replicating and growing. If his system has been running for 3 years... Chen pulled up his calculations. This time I counted the zeros 3 times. $38 million. The room went silent. That's impossible, someone said. Not impossible, Chen corrected. Just brilliant and completely illegal. Securities fraud, market manipulation, money laundering on a massive scale. Rivera turned to me. Your brother isn't just a con man. He's possibly one of the most sophisticated financial criminals we've encountered. This changes everything. With resources like this, he could disappear forever, assume any identity, go anywhere. Or, I said slowly, a terrible thought forming, he could use it to destroy me completely. Buy judges, hire assassins, create an entire false reality where I'm the criminal and he's the victim. Rivera didn't disagree, which scared me more than any reassurance would have. The war between Marcus and me had escalated beyond family drama, beyond simple fraud. We were now in the realm of international crime, where $38 million could buy a lot of silence, a lot of complicity, a lot of pain. But I had something Marcus didn't. I had the truth. I had the FBI. And I had a determination forged in the fires of betrayal that no amount of money could break. Find him, I told Rivera, before he uses that money to hurt anyone else. Rivera nodded, already mobilizing resources I couldn't imagine. The hunt for Marcus Martinez had just become a federal priority. But I knew my brother. He wouldn't run without one last strike at me. The question was, when would it come, and would I be ready? The answer came sooner than any of us expected. The call came at 3 a.m. I'd finally moved back to my apartment, though FBI agents were stationed outside. The number was from the Federal Detention Center. Dr. Martinez, This is Dr. Angela Foster from the psychiatric unit. Your mother has had a severe psychological break. She's asking for you. I sat up instantly alert. Is she all right? Physically, yes, but she's in acute distress. She keeps saying she needs to tell you something about Marcus before it's too late. Given the circumstances of her case, we thought you should know. An hour later, I sat in a sterile visiting room waiting. Agent Rivera had insisted on accompanying me, concerned about potential manipulation. But when they brought my mother in, I knew this was no act. She'd aged a decade in 2 weeks. Her hair was completely gray now, her face gaunt, her eyes holding a fevered brightness that spoke of sleepless nights and crushing revelations. "Isabel," she whispered, reaching for me with cuffed hands. "My baby, you came." Mom. The word felt foreign. I couldn't remember the last time I'd called her that without sarcasm or pain attached. "I know everything now," she said urgently. "About Marcus, about the money, about what he did to Mother. The FBI showed me the evidence. $38 million. He had $38 million while I mortgaged everything while your father sold his father's watch while I—" She broke down sobbing. Down. Dr. Foster leaned forward. "Mrs. Martinez has been processing a lot of information. The revelation about her son's hidden wealth combined with confirmation of her mother's murder triggered what we call a catastrophic reality collapse. Everything she believed about her family, her choices, her life has been shattered." My mother looked up, mascara streaking her hollow cheeks. "I chose a monster over my daughter. I helped him destroy you when he was playing us all. But there's more, Isabel. Things the FBI doesn't know. Things I just remembered." Rivera pulled out a recorder. "Mrs. Martinez, anything you say—" "I don't care about my rights," she screamed. "My son is a killer. My mother is dead because I was too blind to see what he was—" She turned back to me, grabbing my hands with desperate strength. 2 years before Mother died, Marcus came to me with a proposition. He'd found documents in her house medical patents from your great-grandfather. He said if we could get her to sign them over, he could make us all rich. "The patents," I said. "The FBI knows about those." "No, not just those. There were others. Secret ones. Your great-grandfather worked on classified military projects during World War II, biological weapons research. Marcus found references to a compound, something called Project Mindbridge. He said pharmaceutical companies would pay billions for the formula." Rivera leaned forward intently. "Where are these documents?" "That's just it," Mother refused to tell us. She said some secrets should die, that the research was too dangerous. Marcus became obsessed. He spent months trying to convince her, charm her, manipulate her. When that failed, he killed her, I finished. My mother nodded, fresh tears flowing. "But he never found the documents. He searched her house for weeks after the funeral, even hired professionals. Nothing. He always suspected she'd told someone where they were hidden. He thought maybe she'd told you." Me, I was genuinely shocked. Grandma never mentioned any military research. "You were her favorite," my mother said bitterly, but the venom was directed at herself now. Her brilliant granddaughter following in the family's scientific tradition. Of course she'd trust you over us. "Mrs. Martinez," Rivera interrupted, "are you saying Marcus believes Isabel knows the location of classified military research?" "Not just believes, he's certain. It's why he's really after her. The prosthetics grant was just a bonus. He thinks if he breaks her down enough, she'll reveal where Mother hid Project Mindbridge." The room spun slightly. All this time, I'd thought Marcus was after my research, my grant money. But he was after something I didn't even know existed. "There's more," my mother continued. "The banker, I know who it is. Marcus let it slip once when he was drunk. It's someone from the Defense Department. Someone who's been tracking Project Mindbridge for decades. They're using Marcus to get to the research." A name Rivera pressed. "We need a name." My mother shook her head. "He only called them Colonel. But Isabel, they're dangerous. More dangerous than Marcus. If they think you have information about biological weapons—" She didn't need to finish. I understood. This wasn't just about money or family betrayal anymore. This was about national security classified research and people who would kill to obtain it. "I don't know anything," I said desperately. "Grandma never told me about any hidden documents." My mother studied my face with an intensity that reminded me she was, after all, my mother. She knew my tells, my expressions. "You really don't know," she said wonderingly. Then her face crumpled. "Oh God, I've destroyed your life for nothing. Marcus is hunting you for information you don't have. I've lost everything and it's all been for nothing." "Mrs. Martinez." Dr. Foster intervened gently. "You need to rest. This session has been very traumatic." But my mother wasn't finished. "The diagnosis," she said suddenly. "Isabel, the fake diagnosis Marcus created for you dementia. He was planning to have you committed to use drugs to make you compliant to extract information about Project Mindbridge. He has a doctor ready, someone who'll declare you incompetent. You're not safe. You'll never be safe while he's free." Guards moved to take her away, but she fought them, desperate to say more. "Check Grandma's music box, the one she left you. She always said the best hiding places were in plain sight." Then she was gone, her screams echoing down the corridor, leaving Rivera and me in stunned silence. "Music box?" Rivera asked. "It's at my apartment. Just a regular music box plays Beethoven's Moonlight Sonata. I've had it for 10 years. We need to examine it immediately. If there's even a chance it contains classified materials." We left the detention center as dawn broke over the city. My mind reeled with revelations. Project Mindbridge, biological weapons, a mysterious colonel. And somewhere in all this, my brother sitting on $38 million and convinced I held the key to even greater fortune. Back at my apartment, I retrieved the music box from my bedroom shelf. It was beautiful but unremarkable, made of polished cherry wood with a dancing ballerina inside. Rivera called in specialists who examined it with tools I didn't recognize. After an hour, one looked up with excitement. "There's a hidden compartment, very sophisticated. We need to be careful if this contains what we think it might. There could be security measures." They worked for another hour, finally revealing a small space containing a single USB drive and a handwritten note. I recognized my grandmother's handwriting immediately. "My darling Isabel, if you're reading this, then I'm gone, and someone has finally discovered what should have stayed buried. Project Mindbridge was your great-grandfather's greatest shame, a weapon that could destroy minds, erase memories, control thoughts. He hid the research but couldn't bring himself to destroy it. I trust you to make the right choice. The password is your first science fair project title. All my love, Grandma Ellen." Rivera looked at me expectantly. The password... I thought back to when I was 12, standing proudly beside my project board. The effects of electromagnetic fields on plant growth in hydroponic systems. As I typed it in, I wondered if I was about to unleash something that should have stayed hidden. But Marcus was out there hunting me for this information. The mysterious colonel was pulling his strings. If I didn't take control of this situation, I'd remain a target forever. The drive opened, revealing files that would change everything. Again. But for the first time since this nightmare began, I had something Marcus desperately wanted. Something I could use to end this war once and for all. The question was, did I have the courage to use it? The safe house in Virginia was nothing like the movies. No luxury, no high-tech gadgets, just a modest 2-story home with reinforced windows and federal agents who looked like suburban neighbors. I'd been there for 3 weeks ever since the Project Mindbridge discovery had elevated me from fraud victim to guardian of classified military secrets. Agent Rivera visited daily, updating me on the investigation's progress. Today he brought someone new, Assistant U.S. Attorney Diane Chen, a small woman whose handshake could crush walnuts. "The trial starts in 2 weeks," she announced without preamble. "Your brother's been captured." I nearly dropped my coffee. When how? 4 days ago, trying to cross into Canada with false papers. He's being held in maximum security. No bail. He's facing 47 federal charges ranging from fraud to attempted murder to theft of classified materials. Has he said anything? Chen's expression darkened. He's claiming you're the real criminal mastermind. Says he was trying to stop you from selling Project Mindbridge to foreign powers. He has a very expensive legal team pushing this narrative. But that's insane. It's a defense strategy, Rivera interrupted. Create reasonable doubt, muddy the waters. His lawyers know about your grandmother's USB drive. They're going to claim you've had it all along, that this whole family conflict was staged to cover up your treason. My hands trembled slightly. Even captured Marcus was still attacking, still trying to destroy me. Which brings us to preparation, Chen continued. We need to go over every detail of your testimony, every interaction with Marcus, every piece of evidence. His lawyers will try to break you on the stand. We need you unbreakable. The next hours were grueling. Chen dissected my life with surgical precision, identifying every potential weakness Marcus's team might exploit. Graduate school boyfriends, she asked. 2, both ended amicably. They'll contact them looking for dirt. Ever experiment with drugs? Never. I've seen what substances can do to neural pathways. Good. Political affiliations. I'm registered independent. I vote based on science funding policies. Chen nodded approvingly. Boring is good. Boring is defensible. Rivera's phone buzzed. He answered, his face growing increasingly grim. There's been a development. Other victims of Marcus's schemes are coming forward. 12 so far from across the country. He showed us emails flooding in. Graduate students whose research had been stolen. Elderly investors who'd lost retirement savings. A children's hospital that had been promised revolutionary equipment that never materialized. Can they testify? I asked. We're arranging it, Chen confirmed. But there's something else. One victim didn't just lose money. Dr. James Park from Stanford. His daughter has spina bifida. Marcus promised him early access to your prosthetics technology in exchange for a $200,000 investment. The girl's been waiting for help that was never coming. My heart clenched. I could actually help her. My research is evidence in an ongoing federal case, Chen said firmly. Nothing can be released until after the trial. But she's suffering because of Marcus's lies about my work. I know, and the jury will know. Her father's testimony will be powerful, but we have to follow procedure. A knock at the door made everyone tense. Agents checked, then admitted someone I didn't expect, Sarah Chen Marcus's ex-fiancé. I've been in protective custody too, she explained, looking healthier than when I'd last seen her. The FBI said you should hear what happened yesterday. Rivera nodded for her to continue. Marcus's lawyer contacted me, offered me $5 million to testify that you and I planned everything together, that we framed Marcus for your grandmother's death. They had documents ready, a whole story crafted. What did you tell them? Sarah smiled grimly. I recorded the entire conversation and gave it to the FBI. Witness tampering, bribery, conspiracy to commit perjury. His lawyers are now facing their own charges. It was a victory, but I couldn't celebrate. Marcus's resources seemed endless. $38 million could buy a lot of corruption. There's more, Rivera said. We've identified the banker. Colonel Patricia Hawkins, retired Defense Intelligence Agency. She's been obsessed with Project Mindbridge since the 1980s. Her son was exposed to experimental chemicals during military service. She believes Mindbridge could reverse his neurological damage. So, she partnered with Marcus to get to me. More than partnered. We found communication records. She's been guiding his schemes for years, providing intelligence on targets, helping launder money through military contractors. In exchange, he was supposed to deliver your grandmother's research. Chen pulled out surveillance photos. A severe-looking woman in her 60s, steel-gray hair eyes that had seen too much. She's been arrested but isn't talking. Her lawyer claims she was conducting a legitimate intelligence operation to recover stolen military assets. That's actually brilliant, I said reluctantly. Frame it as patriotic duty rather than personal gain, which is why your testimony is crucial, Chen emphasized. You're the only person who can definitively state you knew nothing about Mindbridge until after your grandmother's death, that Marcus tortured you, trying to find something you didn't know existed. The weight of it settled on my shoulders. The trial wasn't just about justice for my grandmother or protecting my research. It was about exposing a web of corruption that reached into the military-industrial complex itself. I'm ready, I said. What else do I need to know? Chen and Rivera exchanged glances. Your father's agreed to testify, Rivera said finally, for the prosecution. I hadn't heard from my father since the night of the lab attack. How is he broken? Rivera said simply. He's filed for divorce, entered therapy, and wants to make amends. His testimony about your mother and Marcus planning the schemes will be crucial. Can I see him? Not before the trial, but Isabel. Rivera's voice softened. He wanted me to tell you he's sorry, that he chose wrong and he'll spend the rest of his life trying to make it right. I nodded, not trusting my voice. The family I'd grown up with was gone shattered by greed and lies. In its place was a collection of broken people trying to atone for unforgivable choices. Now, Chen said, returning to business, let's discuss the physical evidence. The prosecution's case is strong, but Marcus's defense will attack every piece. The timer devices from the lab, they'll claim you planted them. The forged medical records, they'll say you created them to discredit legitimate concerns about your mental health. The recording from the storage unit, deep fake, I finished. They'll say it's all deep fakes. Exactly. Which is why we have 3 independent digital forensics experts prepared to testify. But Marcus's team has their own experts who'll say the opposite. So it comes down to credibility, I understood, who the jury believes. Which is why we need you perfect on that stand. Calm, professional, sympathetic, but not weak. The brilliant scientist who survived her family's betrayal and still wants to help children. We worked until midnight, Chen drilling me with increasingly hostile questions, teaching me to maintain composure under attack. Rivera played Marcus's lawyer, using every dirty trick to rattle me. Isn't it true, Dr. Martinez, that you've always resented your younger brother's charm and success? No, I've only ever wanted to pursue my research. But you must have been angry when your parents supported his dreams over yours. I was disappointed, but I found my own path. By stealing your grandmother's affection, turning her against her own daughter, I loved my grandmother. She supported my education when no one else would. On and on it went, each question designed to paint me as the manipulative one, the jealous sister who'd orchestrated an elaborate frame-up. By the end, my head pounded, but I'd held steady. Good, Chen said finally. But it'll be worse in court. Marcus will be there playing the victim. The gallery will be full of press. Every word you say will be analyzed, twisted, broadcast. I understand. Because I need to be clear, this isn't just about winning the case. Marcus has made this a public spectacle. He's given interviews from jail, painting himself as a whistleblower trying to stop you from selling military secrets. Alternative media is running with his story. Conspiracy theorists are calling you a deep state operative. I laughed bitterly. I just wanted to help kids get affordable prosthetics. And you will, Rivera assured me. After we put your brother away for 25 to life. As they prepared to leave, Chen turned back. One more thing. Marcus's team filed a motion to have you declared mentally incompetent to testify. They're using the forged medical records as basis. We'll fight it, but be prepared for psychiatric evaluation. After they left, I sat alone in the safe house listening to the agents patrol outside. In 2 weeks, I'd face Marcus across a courtroom. Brother and sister locked in legal combat that would determine not just our futures, but the futures of everyone he'd hurt. I pulled out my laptop and opened my research files. Whatever happened at trial, I wouldn't let Marcus's victims suffer any longer than necessary. As soon as legally possible, I'd make my prosthetics available to every child who needed them. starting with Dr. Park's daughter. It was the only way to find meaning in this madness to transform Marcus's evil into something good. He'd tried to steal my work to profit from it. Instead, I'd give it away, making his entire scheme pointless. The thought made me smile for the first time in weeks. Marcus had always underestimated me, thought money was the ultimate goal. He never understood that some things knowledge, justice, helping others were worth more than all his millions. In 2 weeks, a jury would decide our fates, but I'd already won the only battle that truly mattered. I'd kept my integrity while his rotted away. And that more than any verdict was victory. The federal courthouse in Lower Manhattan looked like a fortress, which felt appropriate, given the siege I was about to endure. Media vans lined the street, reporters thrust microphones at anyone who might be connected to the case. The trial of the century. Some called it, though I suspected they said that about every trial. Diana Chen walked beside me, her presence a shield against the chaos. "Remember," she murmured, eyes forward, no comments, professional dignity at all times. Inside the courtroom was packed. I recognized some faces, colleagues from the university, journalists who'd been following the story, victims of Marcus's schemes. Others were strangers drawn by the spectacle of family destroying family. Then I saw him. Marcus sat at the defense table looking every inch the wronged innocent. His hair was shorter, his suit conservative, his expression carefully crafted to project wounded confusion. When our eyes met, he offered a small, sad smile as if to say, "How did we come to this?" The manipulation was so transparent it made me nauseous, but several jurors were already looking at him with sympathy. The golden boy effect still worked even here. All rise for the Honorable Judge Catherine Morrison. Judge Morrison was in her 60s with sharp eyes that missed nothing. She'd presided over major federal cases for 2 decades. Chen had called her fair but tough, immune to theatrics. "Be seated," Judge Morrison commanded. "We're here for case number 2026 CR 847, United States versus Marcus Martinez. Are all parties ready to proceed?" The opening statement set the battle lines. Chen laid out the prosecution's case methodically: fraud, attempted murder, theft of classified information, a pattern of crimes spanning years. She showed photographs of my destroyed lab, played audio of Marcus planning the attack, presented the staggering financial evidence. The defendant didn't just betray his family, she concluded. He betrayed every person who trusted him, every institution that believed his lies, every child waiting for medical technology he promised but never intended to deliver. Marcus's lead attorney, William Sterling, painted a different picture. According to him, Marcus was a concerned brother trying to protect national security from a sister who'd been seduced by foreign agents. The family conflict all staged to maintain her cover. The money legitimate investments twisted by prosecution spin. Dr. Isabel Martinez had access to classified military research for years, Sterling declared. When her brother discovered her plans to sell it, she orchestrated this elaborate frame-up, using her scientific credibility to destroy an American patriot. It was so absurd I wanted to laugh, but Sterling sold it with conviction, and some jurors looked thoughtful. The seed of doubt was planted. The first week was procedural financial experts explaining the money trail, FBI agents detailing the investigation, forensic specialists confirming the arson evidence. Marcus played his part perfectly, taking notes with concern, shaking his head sadly at particularly damaging testimony, maintaining an air of bewildered victimhood. Then came the victims. Dr. Park took the stand, describing how Marcus had promised early access to my prosthetics for his daughter. "She was so hopeful," he said, voice breaking. She'd seen Dr. Martinez's published papers, knew the technology could change her life. Mr. Martinez said he was her brother, that he could arrange a special trial. We gave him everything, our savings loans against our house, her college fund. Photos of his daughter appeared on screen. A bright-eyed 12-year-old girl confined to a wheelchair holding a printout of my research paper. "What happened when you tried to collect on Marcus Martinez's promises?" Chen asked. "He disappeared, changed numbers. When I finally tracked him down, he said Isabel had refused to help, that she was too selfish to share her work with sick children. Objection, Sterling called. Hearsay. Sustained. Judge Morrison ruled, but the damage was done. More victims followed. Each story was a variation on the theme Marcus's charm promises, tied to my research, money changing hands, dreams shattered. By the time the fifth victim testified, several jurors were glaring at Marcus with open hostility. But Sterling was prepared. On cross-examination, he painted each victim as greedy, gullible, complicit. You never verified his connection to Dr. Martinez. You didn't check if he had legal access to her research. You were hoping to profit from a sick child's misfortune, weren't you? It was brutal, but effective. Doubt crept back in. Maybe these weren't innocent victims, but willing participants in shady dealings. Sarah Chen's testimony shifted everything. She walked the jury through Marcus's operations, his multiple identities, his careful documentation of crimes. He called it his insurance policy, she explained. Said if anyone ever turned on him, he'd take them all down too. Including his sister, Chen prompted. Especially her. He'd been building a file on Isabel since she started graduate school. Surveillance photos, forged documents, plans to discredit her if she ever became too successful. Sterling attacked hard. You were engaged to the defendant. This is just a woman scorned, isn't it? Sarah held steady. I was in love with someone who didn't exist. The real Marcus Martinez is a predator who uses people's love against them. Or perhaps you're the predator Ms. Chen turning state's evidence to avoid your own prosecution. I'm testifying because it's right. Because Isabel Martinez is a brilliant scientist who deserves justice, not destruction by her own family. My father's testimony was the hardest to watch. He'd aged 20 years, his once proud bearing replaced by crushing shame. I failed as a father, he said simply. I chose my son over my daughter, believed lies over truth, enabled destruction over creation. I don't expect forgiveness. I just want to tell the truth now. He detailed my mother and Marcus's schemes, the planning sessions he'd overheard, the gradual escalation from financial manipulation to attempted murder. The night of the lab attack, did you know they intended to hurt Isabel? I suspected, and I went anyway. I told myself it was just property damage, that insurance would cover it. But when I saw the fire, when I realized she might be inside, he broke down completely. Sterling showed no mercy. Mr. Martinez, isn't it true you're testifying against your son to get a lighter sentence for yourself? I'm already going to prison. This won't change that. But you hope it might. You're sacrificing your son to save yourself. No. My father looked directly at Marcus for the first time. I'm telling the truth to save my soul and to warn the world what my son is capable of. On day 8, the prosecution played the storage unit recording. Marcus's voice filled the courtroom, casual and cruel, as he discussed murdering our grandmother, destroying my life, taking everything I'd built. Play it again, Judge Morrison ordered after Sterling objected to its authenticity. The second time, the horror was even clearer. Several jurors couldn't hide their revulsion. Marcus's carefully maintained mask slipped for just a moment, revealing something cold beneath. Colonel Hawkins refused to testify, invoking national security privilege, but her communications with Marcus were entered into evidence showing clear conspiracy to obtain Project Mindbridge through criminal means. Then it was my turn. I took the stand on a gray Tuesday morning, rain streaming down the courthouse windows. Chen walked me through my story chronologically, letting the truth speak with simple power. I loved my brother, I said at one point. Despite everything part of me still does. That's what makes this so hard. He used that love as a weapon. Sterling began cross-examination like a shark scenting blood. Dr. Martinez, you claim to have known nothing about Project Mindbridge, yet it was hidden in your apartment for 10 years. Are we to believe you never once examined this supposed music box? It was my grandmother's. I had no reason to suspect it contained anything. Just as you had no reason to suspect your brother of crimes until it benefited you, I never suspected because I never imagined someone could be so cruel. Or perhaps because there were no crimes until you invented them. Back and forth we went for hours. Sterling tried every angle: jealous sister, secret agent, delusional scientist, master manipulator. I held to the truth with steady calm. Chen's training, paying off. You've built your career on creating things that don't exist, haven't you? Prosthetics that give false hope to desperate families? I've built my career on helping children. My prosthetics are real tested and will be available as soon as legally possible. After you've milked them for publicity during this trial— Objection, Chen called. Argumentative. Sustained. Sterling changed tactics. The forged medical records show a pattern of mental instability. Records your client created, I interrupted. I can provide contact information from my actual physicians who will confirm I've never been treated for any psychiatric condition. Convenient that you have explanations for everything. The truth often is convenient, Mr. Sterling. It has the advantage of being consistent. A few jurors smiled at that. Sterling's face reddened. The worst moment came when he displayed the deep fake videos. Watching myself say words I'd never spoken, confess to crimes I hadn't committed, was surreal and sickening. Can you prove these are fake? Sterling demanded. Can you prove they're real? I countered. Because I know where I was when these were supposedly recorded, and it wasn't in front of a camera confessing to treason. Judge Morrison intervened. Mr. Sterling, if you're entering these videos as evidence, I'll need authentication from your experts. Of course, Your Honor. We have 3 digital forensics experts prepared to testify to their authenticity. And we have 5 prepared to prove they're fake, Chen added. The judge sighed. Then we'll hear from all 8. The moment of truth came when Sterling asked about the grant. $1 million is a lot of money, isn't it, Dr. Martinez? It's adequate for initial research and development. Adequate, most people would call it life-changing, worth killing for perhaps— I looked directly at the jury. Mr. Sterling, I've spent 7 years developing technology to help paralyzed children walk again. I've worked 3 jobs to pay for my education. I've sacrificed relationships, comfort, and financial security for this research. Do you really think I'd throw it all away for money I was already legitimately awarded? People have done worse for less. Yes, I agreed, looking at Marcus. They have, which is why we're here. Sterling's final attack was personal. You claim to care about children, yet you have none of your own. You claim to value family, yet you're testifying against your brother. You claim to seek justice, yet you're destroying everyone who ever loved you. What kind of person does that make you? The courtroom held its breath. This was the moment Chen had prepared me for the emotional manipulation designed to break me. It makes me someone who values truth over blood, I said quietly. Someone who believes protecting innocent victims matters more than protecting guilty family. Someone who knows that real love doesn't demand silence in the face of evil. If that makes me a bad daughter, a bad sister, then I accept that judgment. But I'd rather be hated for telling the truth than loved for enabling lies. Sterling had no response. He sat down, perhaps recognizing he'd pushed too far. Chen's redirect was brief but powerful. Dr. Martinez, when this trial ends, what are your plans? To return to my research, to make my prosthetics available to every child who needs them, starting with Dr. Park's daughter, to prove that good can come from even the worst betrayal. At what profit margin? None. The technology will be open source, free for anyone to manufacture and distribute. Marcus tried to steal it for profit. I'm giving it away to spite his greed and help those he hurt. Several jurors nodded approvingly. Even Judge Morrison looked impressed. As I stepped down from the stand, I caught Marcus's eye one final time. The mask had dropped completely. The hatred there was pure and poisonous. But underneath, I saw something else. Fear. He knew he'd lost. The truth had won. The trial should have been winding down. Both sides had presented their cases, the expert witnesses had battled over digital forensics, and closing arguments were scheduled for the next day. Then Sterling stood up with a smile that made my blood run cold. Your Honor, the defense requests permission to call one final witness, someone whose testimony will completely reframe this case. Judge Morrison looked irritated. Mr. Sterling, you've had weeks to present your witness list. This is highly irregular. This witness only came forward last night, Your Honor. Given the extraordinary nature of their testimony, we believe excluding them would constitute reversible error. Chen was on her feet immediately. Objection. This is ambush tactics. The prosecution hasn't had time to prepare. The witness is available for immediate testimony. Sterling interrupted. The prosecution can have a brief recess to interview them if needed. Judge Morrison considered. Who is this witness? Sterling's smile widened. Mr. Charles Morrison, Your Honor, former roommate of the defendant at State University. My stomach dropped. Charlie Morrison. I hadn't heard that name in over 10 years, hadn't thought about him in nearly as long. We'd shared a lab space during sophomore year, nothing more. Why would he? Then I remembered. The complaint I'd filed against him for stealing my research, the academic probation he'd received, the threats he'd made before dropping out. I'll allow it, Judge Morrison ruled. But Mr. Sterling, this better be relevant and not a fishing expedition. The prosecution may have 30 minutes to interview the witness. The man who entered the conference room bore little resemblance to the arrogant sophomore I remembered. Charlie had gained weight-lost hair and developed a nervous tic in his left eye. He wouldn't meet my gaze as Chen questioned him. Mr. Morrison, what is your relationship to the defendant? We were lab partners sophomore year, before she destroyed my life. Chen and I exchanged glances. This was worse than expected. Can you elaborate? Charlie launched into a tale of persecution that would have been laughable if it weren't so dangerous. According to him, I'd stolen his research, seduced our professor into taking my side, and orchestrated his expulsion from the university. None of that is true, I interjected. You copied my work and submitted it as your own. The investigation proved... The investigation she rigged. Charlie snapped, finally looking at me. The hatred in his eyes rivaled Marcus's. Just like she's rigging this case against her brother. Chen continued her questioning, but it was clear Charlie had been well prepared by the defense. Every answer painted me as manipulative, vindictive, capable of elaborate deceptions. By the time we returned to court, I felt sick. Sterling examined Charlie like a master conductor leading an orchestra, each question built on the last, creating a symphony of doubt about my character. Mr. Morrison, can you describe the incident that led to your academic probation? Isabel and I were working on similar projects. I made a breakthrough, first documented everything properly. But she had access to my computer, we shared a lab, and she stole my data. When I confronted her, she went to the administration claiming I'd stolen from her. What evidence did she present? Fabricated timestamps, altered lab notebooks. She was always good with computers, knew how to manipulate digital records. The administration believed her because she was the star student, the golden girl. I was just average, so I must be the thief. It was a complete reversal of reality, but Charlie sold it with the conviction of someone who'd rewritten history in his own mind. What happened after your probation? I couldn't get into any graduate program. My reputation was destroyed. I ended up working minimum wage jobs while watching Isabel Martinez become famous for her innovations. Some of those early papers based on my work, the work she stole. Objection, Chen called. No foundation for these claims. Sustained, Judge Morrison ruled, but the damage was done. Sterling moved to the kill shot. Mr. Morrison, have you been following this trial? Yes. When I saw the news, I couldn't stay silent anymore. Why not? Charlie turned to the jury, his expression earnest. Because she's doing it again, the same pattern. Someone threatens her success, she destroys them with elaborate lies. Her brother discovered something that could damage her reputation, so she's framing him just like she framed me. But the evidence can be faked. She taught me that. Every document, every recording, every witness can be manipulated if you're smart enough. And Isabel Martinez is brilliant at manipulation. Chen's cross-examination was fierce but largely ineffective. Charlie had an answer for everything a conspiracy theory to explain every contradiction. The more Chen pushed, the more convinced he seemed, and worse, the more convincing he became. Mr. Morrison, you were placed on academic probation for plagiarism, correct? That's what they called it. Really, it was Isabel covering her tracks. The investigative committee found digital evidence proving you accessed Dr. Martinez's files without permission. Digital evidence she planted. She had my passwords, we were friends before she betrayed me, or I thought we were friends. So everyone is lying except you. The committee, the digital forensics experts, the witnesses who saw you copying her work. She fooled them all, just like she's fooling you now. That's what she does, makes people believe her version of reality while she destroys anyone in her way. I watched the jury as Charlie testified. Some looked skeptical, but others were wavering. The seed Sterling had planted was growing. If I'd supposedly done this before, maybe I was doing it again. When Charlie finally stepped down, Sterling recalled me to the stand for further cross-examination. Judge Morrison allowed it over Chen's strenuous objections. Dr. Martinez. Sterling began, "Do you deny that Charles Morrison was placed on academic probation after you accused him of plagiarism?" I reported that he'd stolen my work. The investigation confirmed it. Just as this investigation has confirmed your brother's guilt, I saw the trap but had no way to avoid it. The evidence confirms Marcus's guilt. Evidence you've presented, investigations you've influenced, rather like your sophomore year, wouldn't you say? Not at all. Charlie Morrison stole my research and was caught. Marcus committed multiple felonies and was caught. The only similarity is that both thought they could take what wasn't theirs. Or perhaps the similarity is that you've perfected the art of framing innocent people who threaten you. Objection, Chen called. Counsel is testifying. Withdrawn, Sterling said smoothly. Dr. Martinez, after Mr. Morrison's academic probation, what happened to the research he was working on? I hesitated. This was the trap's teeth. I continued developing it. You mean you stole it? No, I continued my own work that he'd tried to steal. How convenient. And now with your brother out of the way, you'll continue developing the prosthetics technology he helped create. He had nothing to do with my research. Just as Charles Morrison had nothing to do with your sophomore project, around and around we went. Sterling was brilliant, I had to admit. He took Charlie's lies and wove them into Marcus's defense seamlessly. By the time he finished, I felt battered, my credibility hanging by threads. Chen tried damage control on redirect, but Sterling objected to almost every question. Judge Morrison sustained many of them, clearly irritated by the late-stage chaos Charlie's testimony had introduced. As court adjourned for the day, Chen pulled me aside. We need to find everything about Morrison, financial records, communication history, any connection to Marcus or his lawyers. Rivera was already on his phone. I'll get a team on it. Something's not right here. Morrison showing up now, this perfectly crafted testimony. We worked through the night. By 3 a.m., Rivera's team had found it. Phone records showing multiple calls between Charlie Morrison and a number registered to Marcus's defense fund. Bank records showing a $50,000 deposit to Charlie's account 2 days ago. Email drafts on a shared server containing Sterling's exact questions and Charlie's prepared answers. It's witness tampering, Chen said exhaustedly. Clear cut, but will Morrison admit it? He doesn't have to. Rivera smiled grimly. We have enough to prove it. The question is whether Judge Morrison will allow us to present it given the late hour. When court reconvened, Chen immediately requested a sidebar. The conversation at the bench was heated but brief. Judge Morrison's expression went from skeptical to furious as she reviewed our evidence. Mr. Sterling, she said in a tone that could freeze helium, I'll see you and your team in chambers, now." What followed was the kind of judicial dressing down that becomes legal legend. We couldn't hear the specifics, but Sterling emerged looking like he'd been mauled. Two of his co-counsels were in tears. Judge Morrison addressed the court with cold fury. "Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, you are to disregard the entirety of Charles Morrison's testimony. It has come to the court's attention that this witness was improperly influenced by the defense. Mr. Sterling, consider yourself on notice. One more irregularity and I'll hold you in contempt. Additionally, this matter will be referred to the Bar Association for investigation." She turned to the jury. "I apologize for this disruption. The integrity of this trial is paramount, and attempts to subvert justice will not be tolerated." Marcus's face was a study in rage. His perfect plan had failed, his expensive lawyers had been caught, and worse, the jury now knew he'd tried to cheat the system. Several jurors who'd been wavering now looked at him with open disgust. But Sterling wasn't finished. Even bloodied, he was dangerous. "Your Honor," he said carefully, "while we regret any appearance of impropriety, the core question remains. Dr. Martinez has a history of conflict with those who challenge her. Whether Charles Morrison was overzealous in his testimony doesn't change the pattern of behavior. Mr. Sterling," Judge Morrison's voice could have cut glass, "you're walking on very thin ice. Present your closing argument tomorrow without any reference to the stricken testimony or face the consequences." As court adjourned, I felt something I hadn't expected: pity for Marcus. He'd hired the best lawyers money could buy, spent millions on his defense, corrupted witnesses, and created elaborate lies. And it was all crumbling because the truth, like gravity, always won in the end. Tomorrow would bring closing arguments and then jury deliberation. The end was in sight, but I knew Marcus well enough to know he wouldn't go quietly. Whatever his final play was, it would come soon. I was right, but even I couldn't have predicted how far he'd go. The morning of closing arguments, I woke to sirens. Not unusual in New York, but these were different. Too many too close. Rivera burst into my hotel room without knocking. "We need to move now." "What's happening?" "Marcus escaped during transport. 3 guards injured. He's in the wind." My blood turned ice. "How?" "Professional extraction. Military precision. We think Colonel Hawkins had backup plans we didn't know about." As we raced through the hotel's service corridors, Rivera filled me in. Marcus was being transferred from holding to court when 2 vehicles boxed in the transport van. Smoke grenades, flashbangs, zip lines from adjacent buildings, a Hollywood-worthy escape that left authorities stunned. "Judge Morrison's continuing the trial," Rivera said as we reached the armored vehicle. "She says fleeing proves guilt. Sterling's having a meltdown demanding a mistrial." He knew, I realized. Sterling knew this was planned. The witness tampering getting caught, it was all distraction. Rivera nodded grimly. "FBI's raiding his office now. But our immediate concern is your safety. Marcus is out there desperate and probably armed." The courthouse was in lockdown when we arrived. Metal detectors at every entrance, SWAT teams on the roof, enough security to protect a president. But I still felt exposed, vulnerable, waiting for Marcus to materialize from shadow. Inside the courtroom buzzed with barely contained chaos. The jury looked shaken, Sterling's remaining team huddled in panicked conference, and Judge Morrison presided over it all with iron control. "Ladies and gentlemen," she addressed the jury, "the defendant's absence, while concerning, does not halt these proceedings. You are to draw no inference from his flight beyond what the law allows, that consciousness of guilt may be considered as evidence." Sterling objected, of course. "Your Honor, my client may have been kidnapped, coerced. To continue without him violates—" "Mr. Sterling, your client escaped custody in a coordinated assault that injured 3 officers. If you have evidence of coercion, present it. Otherwise, sit down." Chen's closing argument was masterful. She walked the jury through the evidence methodically, the financial crimes, the forged documents, the recorded confessions, the pattern of escalating violence. Marcus Martinez isn't just a con artist, she concluded. He's a predator who weaponized family bonds for profit. He destroyed lives, stole dreams, and when his own sister stood in his way, he tried to destroy her, too. Don't let him succeed. Sterling's closing was desperate but effective. He couldn't deny the evidence, so he attacked its sources. Every witness had a motive to lie. Every document could be forged. Every recording might be fake. The only person we know committed crimes, he argued, is Isabel Martinez. She admitted taking Charles Morrison's work. She admitted keeping classified military research. She's profited from this trial's publicity, while her brother, perhaps innocent, runs for his life from a system determined to destroy him. Objection, Chen called. Counsel is referencing stricken testimony. Sustained. Mr. Sterling, you're in contempt. Bailiff, escort him to holding. The courtroom gasped as Sterling was handcuffed and removed. His co-counsel, a young woman who looked terrified, had to deliver the rest of the closing argument. She did her best, but without Sterling's charisma, the defense crumbled. Judge Morrison's jury instructions were precise and comprehensive. The law, the charges, the burden of proof, she left nothing ambiguous. As the jury filed out to deliberate, she addressed the remaining crowd. This court will remain in session until verdict. Given the defendant's flight risk, I'm sealing all records and restricting access. Only essential personnel and credentialed media may remain. Hours crawled by. Chen tried to reassure me that quick verdicts usually favored prosecution, but I couldn't relax. Somewhere out there, Marcus was planning something. I could feel it like storm pressure in my bones. The feeling proved prophetic. Rivera's phone rang just after lunch. His face went pale as he listened. There's been an incident at your lab, he told me quietly. The temporary space the university set up for you. Someone broke in, destroyed everything, and left a message. He showed me photos on his phone. My new equipment smashed, research scattered and painted on the wall in red, not guilty by reason of insanity, an M. He's building an insanity defense for appeal, Chen realized, creating evidence of mental breakdown. There's more, Rivera said reluctantly. He's been spotted near Dr. Park's house, the family with the sick daughter. We have units en route, but... The implication hung heavy. Marcus was targeting trial witnesses. Whether for revenge or to prevent testimony in future proceedings, people were in danger because of me. I started, but Chen grabbed my arm. You need to stay here in protective custody until the verdict. That's what he wants, to draw you out, create a confrontation he can spin to his advantage. She was right, but sitting safely while others faced danger felt like cowardice. I thought of Dr. Park's daughter waiting for help that might never come if Marcus succeeded. Then Rivera's phone rang again. This time he smiled. They got him. Marcus was approaching the Park house when our units intercepted. He's in custody, no one hurt. Relief flooded through me so intensely I nearly collapsed. It was over. Really, finally over. An hour later, the jury returned. They filed in solemnly, not looking at anyone. My heart hammered as the foreman stood. On count 1 conspiracy to commit fraud, we find the defendant guilty. On count 2 wire fraud, we find the defendant guilty. On count 3 money laundering, we find the defendant guilty. On and on it went. 47 counts, 47 guilty verdicts. By the time the foreman finished, Marcus would be facing multiple life sentences. Judge Morrison thanked the jury for their service, then addressed the gallery. Sentencing is scheduled for 6 weeks hence. The defendant will be held without bail in maximum security. Court is adjourned. As people filed out, Chen hugged me tightly. It's over. You won. But I didn't feel victorious. I felt empty, drained, grieving for the brother I'd never really had and the family that had destroyed itself. Rivera drove me to a secure location for debriefing. Marcus had been caught with a gun, fake passports, and nearly $200,000 in cash. He'd planned to flee the country after killing me and the witnesses he blamed for his conviction. He'll never hurt anyone again, Rivera assured me. Between federal and state charges, he'll die in prison. That night alone in yet another anonymous hotel room, I finally allowed myself to cry. Not for Marcus, he'd chosen his path, but for the could-have-beens. The brother who might have used his intelligence for good. The parents who might have loved both their children equally. The grandmother who might have lived to see her great-grandchildren. All those possibilities murdered by greed. But from their ashes, something new could grow. My prosthetics research tested by fire would now help children around the world. The victims of Marcus's schemes would receive restitution from his seized assets. The truth, painful as it was, had set us all free. My phone buzzed with a text from Dr. Harrison. "Proud of you. Lab space ready when you are. Let's change the world." For the first time in months, I smiled genuinely. Marcus had tried to steal my future. Instead, he'd only made it clearer. I had work to do. Children to help innovations to create. The war was over. It was time to build peace. 6 months after the trial, my new lab hummed with productive energy. Larger than before, better equipped and filled with brilliant minds drawn by our mission. The university had given me carte blanche to build my dream research facility, and private donations poured in from people moved by the trial's revelations. Today was special. Lucy Chen, no relation to the prosecutor, sat in the testing chair, her eyes bright with excitement. 7 years old, born without a left arm, she was about to test the latest version of my neural responsive prosthetic. "Are you ready?" I asked gently. She nodded eagerly. "I practiced the focusing exercises you taught me. I can do this." Her mother stood nearby, tears already forming. They'd driven 12 hours when they heard we were accepting test patients. Lucy had read every article about my research, understood the science better than most adults. I activated the prosthetic. For a moment, nothing happened. Then Lucy's face lit up as the fingers flexed. "I'm doing it," she squealed. "Look, Mom, I'm moving my robot hand." Within minutes, she was picking up blocks, high-fiving my research assistants, and hugging her mother with both arms for the first time in her life. There wasn't a dry eye in the lab. "When can I take it home?" Lucy asked hopefully. "Soon," I promised. "We need a few more tests, but you'll be one of our first full-time users. And Lucy, you're helping us make it better for every child who comes after you." She beamed with pride. As they left, Lucy turned back. "Dr. Isabel, thank you for not letting the bad man stop you from helping kids." The bad man. That's what the media had taken to calling Marcus after his sentencing. 25 years to life, no possibility of parole. He'd stood in court unrepentant to the end, claiming I'd orchestrated everything. Even as Judge Morrison read the sentence, he'd stared at me with undimmed hatred. I'd visited him once in prison. Chen had advised against it, but I needed closure. He'd refused to see me at first, then relented, probably hoping to manipulate me one final time. The man in the orange jumpsuit bore little resemblance to my golden boy brother. Prison had hardened him, aged him, but the arrogance remained. "Come to gloat?" he'd asked through the reinforced glass. "Come to understand. Why Marcus? We could have both succeeded. There was room for both of us." He'd laughed bitterly. "You still don't get it. It was never about success. It was about winning, about proving I was the special one, not you. By destroying me. By taking what you valued most. But you're like a cockroach, aren't you? Impossible to kill." "I'm like our grandmother," I'd corrected. "Too stubborn to let cruelty win." His face had twisted at the mention of our grandmother. "She chose you, loved you more, just like everyone eventually does. Perfect Isabel with her perfect mind and perfect morals. She loved us both. You killed her for money that's now paying restitution to your victims. How's that for irony?" He'd lunged at the glass, then guards restraining him as he screamed obscenities. As they dragged him away, he'd shouted one last thing. "You'll never be safe. I have friends, contacts. This isn't over." But it was. His friends had abandoned him. The mysterious Colonel Hawkins had been sentenced to 15 years. His lawyers had been disbarred. His hidden millions had been seized. He was alone with his hate, and I was free to heal. My phone buzzed, pulling me from dark memories. A text from my father. We'd begun corresponding after the trial, tentative messages testing the possibility of relationship after devastation. Saw the news about Lucy. Proud of you. Would like to visit if you're willing. I stared at the message torn between old hurt and new hope. Rivera, who'd become a friend after the case, had told me about my father's transformation. Intensive therapy volunteer work with families torn apart by crime, genuine attempts at redemption. Coffee Tuesday, I typed back. Neutral ground. Thank you. I know I don't deserve it. Maybe he didn't, but holding on to anger was like swallowing Marcus's poison daily. I'd learned to transmute pain into purpose. Maybe forgiveness could follow. My lab door opened and Dr. Harrison entered with his characteristic gentle smile. The Park family is here for their appointment. Dr. James Park's daughter, Mina, had been one of my first successful fittings. After everything her family had endured Marcus's con, the trial testimony, death threats from his remaining supporters, they deserved priority. Mina rolled in with her new legs already attached, walking beside her wheelchair instead of in it. Watch this, Dr. Martinez. She took off at a run, circling the lab with joy that transcended any scientific achievement. I'm trying out for track team next month. Her father shook my hand, too emotional for words. They'd refused my offer to waive all costs, insisting on paying what they could afford. You gave us hope when Marcus stole it, he'd said. Let us give something back. That had sparked an idea. The Breaking Chains Foundation, funded by donations and Marcus's seized assets, providing free prosthetics to children whose families had been victimized by fraud, turning poison into medicine. Dr. Martinez. My newest research assistant, Keiko, approached nervously. There's a woman here. Says she's your mother. Security has her at the entrance. My stomach clenched. I hadn't seen my mother since her breakdown at the trial. She'd been sentenced to 5 years out in 2 with good behavior and mandatory psychiatric treatment. According to her lawyer's letters, she was responding well to therapy, accepting responsibility, wanting to make amends. I'll meet her in the conference room, I decided, with security present. The woman waiting for me was a shadow of Patricia Martinez, thin gray, wearing simple clothes instead of her usual designer armor, but her eyes were clear, present in a way they'd never been during my childhood. Isabel, she said softly, thank you for seeing me. What do you want? I kept my voice neutral, professional. To apologize. Properly. My therapist says I need to do it for my own healing, but that's not why I'm here. I'm here because you deserve to hear it. I waited. I failed you as a mother. Chose Marcus over you every day for 30 years. Convinced myself it was love, but it was sickness. Generational trauma, my therapist calls it. My mother favored my brother, so I repeated the pattern. Made Marcus the golden child who could do no wrong, and you the scapegoat who could never do enough. Her voice broke, but she continued. I let him poison our family, helped him destroy you because I couldn't face that I'd created a monster. When he killed Mother, she shuddered. I knew. Deep down, I knew. But admitting it meant admitting my whole life was a lie. And now, and I asked, now I'm in therapy 4 times a week, taking medication that helps me see clearly for the first time, working with other mothers who enabled their children's crimes, trying to break the cycle so it dies with me. She pulled out an envelope, hands shaking. I've written you letters, hundreds of them. My therapist says I can't send them. That would be selfish, burdening you with my guilt. But I wanted you to know they exist, that every day I write to the daughter I should have protected, loved, celebrated. Why are you really here? I asked. To tell you the truth about your grandmother's last words. I've carried it for 10 years, and it's eating me alive. My breath caught. What words? She didn't die immediately. In the ambulance, she knew what we'd done. Her last words were, tell Isabel I love her. Tell her to build beautiful things. I never told you. Stole even that from you. The words hit like physical blows. My grandmother's final thoughts had been of me, and my mother had kept that gift locked away out of spite. "I don't expect forgiveness," my mother continued. "I don't deserve it, but you deserve to know your grandmother's love followed you even into death." She stood to leave, then paused. "I watch your work, every article, every breakthrough. You're building the beautiful things she knew you would, despite us, because of her faith in you." After she left, I sat in the empty conference room processing. My mother's visit had torn open wounds I thought were healed, but it had also given me a gift, my grandmother's last words, a benediction across death. That night, I worked late in the lab, fine-tuning Lucy's prosthetic design. Each improvement brought us closer to seamless integration, to giving children back what nature or accident had taken. As midnight approached, I thought about family, the one I'd lost to greed and madness, the one I'd found in mentors like Dr. Harrison, friends like Rivera colleagues who shared my mission, the extended family of every child we helped, every life we improved. Marcus had tried to steal my work because he saw only its monetary value. He'd never understood that true wealth lay in Lucy's laughter, as she hugged her mother in Mina's determination to run track in the thousands of children who would walk, grass, play, and dream because we refused to let evil win. My phone buzzed with a video message from Lucy's mother. Lucy, still wearing her prosthetic, had fallen asleep clutching a teddy bear with both arms. "First time she's been able to cuddle properly." The message read, "Thank you for giving her this." I smiled through tears. My grandmother had been right. Beautiful things could grow from ugly soil. Marcus's hatred had tried to salt the earth, but love and determination were stronger than any poison. The war was over. The building had begun, and every child who gained function, freedom, and hope was another victory over the darkness that had tried to claim us all. Beautiful things indeed. 2 years had passed since Marcus's conviction. The December morning was crisp and bright as I stood before an audience of thousands in Stockholm's concert hall. The Nobel Prize medal hung heavy around my neck, its weight both honor and responsibility. Dr. Isabel Martinez's contributions to pediatric prosthetic technology have transformed millions of lives, the presenter had said. Her open-source designs, available freely to manufacturers worldwide, represent not just scientific innovation, but profound humanitarian impact. Now, as I approached the podium to deliver my acceptance speech, I spotted familiar faces in the audience. Dr. Harrison, gray-haired but beaming with paternal pride. Diana Chen, who'd become a dear friend. Agent Rivera, providing security even now. My father, sober for 18 months, rebuilding his life one day at a time. And in the front row, a section I'd personally requested 20 children wearing my prosthetics. Lucy Chen, now 9, waved enthusiastically with her robotic arm. Mina Park stood tall on legs that had carried her to a junior track championship. Children from Africa, Asia, South America, a rainbow coalition of young lives transformed. 2 years ago, I began my voice carrying across the hushed hall. My brother tried to murder me for this technology. He saw only profit where I saw possibility. He chose greed where I chose giving. Today, over 10,000 children have received prosthetics based on our open-source designs. Each one is a repudiation of his values and an affirmation of what science should be a tool for human flourishing, not exploitation. The audience was silent, captivated. I debated mentioning Marcus, but authenticity demanded truth. My grandmother, Ellen Foster, was murdered for refusing to reveal military secrets she believed should stay buried. Before she died, she told me to build beautiful things. Every child who runs on our prosthetic legs, every student who writes with our robotic hands, every dream made possible by our technology is a beautiful thing growing from ugly soil. I paused, seeing my mother in the back row. She'd been denied official invitation but had come anyway, sitting quietly, tears streaming down her face. Our relationship remained broken, perhaps irreparably, but she'd kept her promise to stay in treatment to break the generational cycle of favoritism and enabling. Science without ethics is mere cleverness, I continued. Technology without compassion is hollow innovation. We stand at a crossroads where artificial intelligence, biotechnology, and human ambition intersect. We can choose the path of Marcus Martinez brilliance, twisted into greed, family perverted into weapon love, transformed into leverage. Or we can choose the path of Ellen Foster knowledge, guarded wisely love, given freely beauty built, despite darkness. Lucy stood up in the front row, raising her prosthetic hand high. One by one, the other children joined her, a forest of artificial limbs reaching skyward. The gesture spread through the audience, scientists, dignitaries, journalists, all raising their hands in solidarity. To every child waiting for help, I said through tears, "We're coming." To every researcher choosing ethics over easy money, keep going. To every family torn between enabling and accountability, choose truth. And to those who think violence and greed can stop human progress, look at these children. Look at what grows when watered with compassion instead of poison. The standing ovation lasted 12 minutes, but I barely heard it, focused instead on the children in the front row, their faces bright with possibility. Later at the reception, unexpected visitors appeared. Sarah Chen approached nervously, accompanied by a man I didn't recognize. "Dr. Martinez," she said formally. "This is my husband, David. We wanted to thank you. Your forgiveness during the trial, your recommendation to the prosecutor for leniency, it saved my life." Sarah had served 6 months for her role in Marcus's schemes, then dedicated herself to helping other women escape manipulative relationships. She now ran a nonprofit supporting fraud victims. "We all make choices," I replied. "You chose courage when it mattered. That's what counts." As they moved away, Rivera appeared at my elbow. "Security intercepted something you should know about. Marcus sent a letter from prison. We've cleared it as harmless, but—" "Burn it," I said without hesitation. "Whatever poison he's selling, I'm not buying." Rivera smiled approvingly. "Already done. Just wanted you to know he's still trying." "He'll die trying, that's his choice. Mine is to forget he exists." The evening progressed with congratulations, photographs and promises of collaboration from researchers worldwide. But the moment that mattered most came when Lucy Chen tugged at my dress. "Dr. Isabel," she said seriously, "I want to be like you when I grow up. Not just a scientist, a helper, someone who makes broken things work again." I knelt to her level, this remarkable child who'd become my youngest research assistant, testing designs and providing feedback with startling insight. "You already are," I told her. "Every time you test a new design, every suggestion you make, you're helping children you'll never meet. That's the secret, Lucy. We don't just fix broken bodies, we repair broken trust in human goodness." The party was winding down when my father approached. Our relationship remained tentative, rebuilt slowly through supervised visits and careful boundaries. But he'd proven his commitment to change, and I'd learned that forgiveness, like science, could be a process rather than a destination. "Your grandmother would be so proud," he said simply. "I'm proud too, though I know I forfeited the right to say so." "You're earning it back," I acknowledged. "Day by day. That matters." He nodded, understanding the gift of qualified acceptance. We'd never have a fairy tale reconciliation, but we were building something real from the ruins, careful, conscious, conditional, but genuine. As the evening ended, I found myself on the hotel balcony looking out over Stockholm's lights. My phone buzzed with messages from labs worldwide reporting successful implementations of our designs. Brazil had produced its 1,000th unit. India was adapting the technology for local manufacturing. A consortium of African nations was training technicians to fit and maintain the prosthetics. Each message was a victory. Marcus couldn't taint a beautiful thing he couldn't destroy. Dr. Harrison joined me on the balcony, 2 cups of tea in hand. We stood in comfortable silence. Mentor and student become colleagues and friends. "What's next?" he asked eventually. "Neural interfaces for spinal injuries, organ printing for children needing transplants. So much work still to do." "And Marcus?" who I asked and meant it. He'd consumed 2 years of my life with his evil. I wouldn't give him another moment. His legacy would be cautionary tale and nothing more, while mine would be measured in children's laughter and recovered lives. "I have something for you," Dr. Harrison said, pulling out a small wrapped box. Inside was a music box identical to the one my grandmother had left me. "I had it made. Thought you should have one without hidden compartments or dark secrets. Just music and memory." I wound the key and Beethoven's Moonlight Sonata filled the air. But this time it carried no burden of military secrets or family betrayal, just beauty for its own sake the way my grandmother would have wanted. As the music played, I thought about cycles and choices. My mother had repeated her mother's favoritism until it destroyed our family. Marcus had chosen greed over love until it consumed him. But I'd chosen differently, breaking the pattern through conscious decision and daily practice. Every prosthetic we produced was a choice for generosity over greed. Every child we helped was a vote for hope over cynicism. Every day I didn't let bitterness define me was a small victory over the darkness Marcus had tried to plant in my heart. The Nobel Prize was wonderful, but it wasn't the true prize. That came in Lucy's determined grip, Mina's confident stride, and the thousands of children whose lives would unfold differently because we'd refused to let evil have the last word. I closed my eyes and made a promise to my grandmother's memory I would keep building beautiful things. Not despite the ugliness I'd survived, but because of it. Each innovation would be proof that cruelty couldn't kill compassion, that hatred couldn't halt progress, that a family's betrayal couldn't break the human spirit. Marcus would spend decades in a cage of his own making, while I'd spend them opening doors for others. He'd tried to steal my future, but it only clarified my purpose. He'd remained trapped in the past while I reached toward tomorrow. The music box played on its melody, mixing with Stockholm's midnight bells. Somewhere a child was taking their first steps on prosthetic legs. Somewhere parents were crying with relief at hope restored. Somewhere researchers were improving on my designs, building beauty I couldn't yet imagine. And here I stood, scarred but not broken, tested but not toppled, a survivor transformed into a builder of beautiful things. The war had ended long ago. The peace we'd built from its ashes would last forever. Dear viewers, if this story touched your heart, I have a question for you. What would you have done if faced with your own family's betrayal? Would you have fought for justice even if it meant losing everyone you loved, or would family bonds have held you back? Share your thoughts in the comments below. I'd love to hear your perspectives on family forgiveness and standing up for what's right. If you found inspiration in Isabel's journey from betrayal to triumph, please hit that like button and subscribe to hear more powerful stories of resilience and redemption. And don't forget to share this video with anyone who needs a reminder that we can build beautiful things from even the darkest circumstances. Thank you for joining me on this emotional journey. May you always have the courage to choose truth over comfort, justice over easy lies, and hope over bitterness. Until next time, keep building your own beautiful things, one choice at a time.